Hey guys, welcome back to channel. So in this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto Rias Fallen Angel High School DxD. This is part 1, and if you want more then please leave a like, share and subscribe. Pain, that is all Naruto felt as he plummeted deeper and deeper into the endless void of Kagaya's portal. He could scarcely remember how it all happened, even if it had only occurred a few moments. The extent of the pain his body was going through was so great that he couldn't even hear the voices of the tailed beasts inside of him calling out for him. From what little he remembered he knew that they had managed to seal away Kagaya, that he was certain of, however, with the last bits of her power, she managed to push him though one last portal, or rather most of him as his left arm hadn't been able to pass through before the gate closed on it. Without a master to control it, the portal was left without a proper exit, leaving the sole inhabitant of the void no mean of escape as far as he knew. The conditions of the dimension were slowly becoming more and more inhospitable to him. His clothes had already been ripped apart and his skin was now starting to vaporize. Using the last of his strength he was able to open his eyes enough to see a small light far from him, yet slowly coming closer to him. All he could do was smile and hope his body held out to come out alright, and with that Naruto's life as a human end, the blonde's corpus fell until it finally reached the light. Azazel was having a pretty bad day. He had just found out that more of his agents had gone rogue of him and joined a group called the Cows Brigade. His already small and weakened faction was slowly dwindling away as more of his brothers and sisters were lost in battle against devils. Normally this would go against the treaty set in place during the last Great War, but unfortunately it was almost always his men who started the conflict. The fallen angel was brought out of his thoughts as the area in front of him exploded in a mesmerizing burst of light. Being forced to avert his eyes, he couldn't quite see what was going on, but once the light faded, he was able to see a teen on the soft grass of the park he was in. The blonde teen was wearing nothing but he could see that the body had suffered large amounts of damage and had even lost an arm. As he walked over he saw that while the body seemed to be human, it had an incredible amount of power within him. Lastly, noticing the lack of movement of the blonde's chest he assumed that he had died. Azazel hummed as he crouched next to the corpus. He could feel the power within the teen doing everything in its power to preserve the body and maybe even revive its host. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. The energy inside the body could only be compared to that of the yokai, yet this was far more potent and felt complete. If he had to compare this boy's energy to that of the yokai it would be placed in a whole new level. Well, the senjutsu and yujutsu some like the Nekomata could use was powerful. The body's power made it seem like a lake compared to an ocean. Just as he was about to decide to stop wasting time in an already dead human, an idea struck him. Reaching into his pocket he pulled out a small midnight blue orb. I think this might be the best opportunity I have to test this. I hope this works, he said smirking as he pushed the orb deep into the blonde's blood-covered chest. He couldn't help but laugh in joy as a massive magic circle-looking seal appeared under the blonde. He jumped out of the range of the seal before it erupted into a column of black light with golden sparks dancing around the both within and out of the pillar. The black light faded away. The teen's body, which at one time been lifeless, now had the steady movement that signified breathing. The blonde's body had been nearly completely restored minus the severed arm. I can't believe that actually worked, Azazel said to himself as he patted himself on the back for a job well done. Walking over to the formerly dead body he felt the power within the body growing larger by a decent margin. Well, better take him to a place to rest and see what I can do about his arm, he said as he picked up the blonde teen out of his back. 12 jet black wings sprouted before he took off into the air. Some time later, Naruto's eyes slowly opened to find himself in an unknown bedroom. The place looked like it belonged to someone with an above average amount of wealth back in Konoha. He couldn't help but let out a yawn which he covered with his left hand. Wait, left hand. He thought before the memories of the end of his battle with Kagaya rushed back to him. I lost my arm, how do I still have it? He muttered as he looked over the limb. It looked exactly like I did before the portal closed and severed it. Like it? A masculine voice asked. Looking up he saw a tall man he had never met before. The man had black hair with blonde bangs and violet eyes. At the moment he wore a black v-neck and grey pants. You better be thankful. I had to use a lot of resources to get you up to this point, the man said as he walked over to Naruto's bedside and sat down on one of the chairs. Naruto narrowed his eyes on the man. What do you mean? Where are we? Who are you and what did you do to me? Naruto asked the strange man who chuckled at the rapid-fire questions the blonde teen was asking him. Oh, slow down kid, the man said stopping Naruto's stream of questions. To start things off, my name is Azazel. May I get your name? The now named Azazel asked Naruto, who was still studying him. None of his sense were telling him not to trust the man in front of. Even the empathy ability he gained from Kurama didn't detect anything. Sorry, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you, Azazel, Naruto said to the man who smiled at the blonde who didn't seem to use any honorifics, like most people seemed to use in the region they were currently in. The pleasure in all mine. As for what I meant by using resources on you, I should explain to you the condition you were in when I found you, Azazel said as he cleared his throat a bit. Naruto waited for the man's slightly annoyed that he seemed to be taking his time. "You were dead," Azazel finally said. Naruto's jaw dropped when the three words that formed the sentence reached his ears and were processed by his brain. Dead?" He asked out in shock before looking over his body one last time to see if anything is different. "So is this the afterlife?" he asked the purple eyes man. Azazel laughed at the boy's reaction to hearing that he died. From what he had observed, it wasn't really that rare for one to think that way. "Nope, I used an item I created to revive you as a member of my faction," the man said to the blonde, who tilted his head to the side, showing Tot he didn't understand what he meant. "I meant that I gave you another chance at life by turning you into a fallen angel," the man with golden bangs explained to Naruto. "What a fallen angel?" Naruto asked Azazel. He had never heard of this faction the man spoke of, nor had he ever heard of a fallen angel before in this life. Azazel sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. It seemed that the team before him had no prior knowledge of what he was talking about. A fallen angel is an angel that fell from the grace of God and was casted out of heaven. This only seemed to further confuse the blonde. Sure, he had heard of words such as God and angel from his encounter with Nagato and Conan, but he never heard them spoken of in the way the strange man spoke of. It seemed that the more Azazel explained to him, the more confusing it all became, due to the added layers of information. "I don't follow. By God, do you mean like the Shinigami?" Naruto asked the fallen angel, who looked like he wanted to slam his head into a wall. "Okay, I guess I'll explain it," all Azazel said before giving the blonde Jinchuriki a quick history lesson of the past between heaven, hell, and the Grigori. To say that all that information was a lot to take in was an understatement, but even then, Naruto managed to wrap his head around it. "So basically I died and you turned me into a fallen angel in order to revive me?" Naruto said in a questioning tone, asking for confirmation that what he said had been correct. Azazel smiled and nodded his response, which prompted the blonde's head to drop. "So am I correct to assume that whatever you did to me restored my arm as well?" "Nope," Azazel said as he reached over and pressed a button that blended in with Naruto's skin. "That caused the back of his hand to lift up, revealing a gun barrel. In order to get your arm back, I had to use my knowledge on the sacred gears I told you about before to create a prosthetic one. I even added a few features like a light gun and a few other fun ones," he said as he clicked another button, causing the hand to shoot out with a wire attached to the back out and punch through the wall Naruto was facing. Azazel grimaced at the sight of the new hole in his wall. "I'm going to have to fix that." "Whoa," Naruto said as his new robotic hand returned to him. It looked completely natural, and he could even control it like a real one. However, when he touched it with his right hand, he felt the metal his arm was made of. "This is awesome," he yelled out as he tried to figure out if the arm had any other secrets. "I know, right? Now back to your questions. I guess I already answered almost all of them minus where we are," Azazel said, rubbing his goatee. "Well, we are currently in one of my houses in Kuo. Well, now that you know what's going on, I wish to extend to you the offer to join me. As a fallen angel, you won't really be popular with devils and angels. Of course, I would personally train you, especially with the amount of power you're giving off," Azazel said to the blonde, who thought about the offer. From what he had here, he won't even be able to live in human society, since he had no way of identifying himself, nor making any sort of money. On top of that, he couldn't contact any of the Bijuu within him at all, and his chakra had changed due to the transformation he had recently gone through. "Well, it's not like I have many options," Naruto thought to himself with a heavy sigh. "I accept your offer, Azazel," Naruto said as he held out his hand. The governor of the fallen angels smiled widely as he took the blonde's hand firmly and shook it. He knew he hadn't made a mistake when he decided to bring Naruto back to life. He only had one of those blasted things made so far, and even then it was still a prototype he made using a stolen evil pieces. Getting more of them to make any more was easier said than done. "Then let's be off," he yelled before dropping an outfit that looked just like his on Naruto's lap. "Get dressed," he said before leaving the blonde by himself. "I can't believe I may never get to see them again," Naruto thought to himself as images of all his friends flashed through his head and ended with Hinata, where his mind lingered for a bit before they faded away. His hands clenched the sheets as a few tears fell from his eyes. He couldn't imagine living without all of them, to never see them again, to never share a laugh with them again. Lastly was his dream to become Hokage. While it wasn't anywhere near as important to him as his friends, it still hurt him knowing his life goal was now out of reach. He looked at his hands. He had nothing to even connect them to him, not even a single picture or memento. All he had left of them was the memories he made with them. However, another part of him told him that they won't want him to simply wallow in their memory. Standing up from the bed, he dressed himself in the clothing Azazel had given him and left the room. Leaving the room, he found Azazel preparing some food in the kitchen. Naruto walked over to the man to see what he was making. He found that he making some strange kind of meat formed into strips and eggs. Azazel noticed Naruto's presence next to him and smirked. "Strange what the humans of this world come up with. We never had things like this in heaven," the fallen angel said. "Yeah," Naruto said, still a little depressed that he could never see his friends again. He didn't know many times space ninjutsu that weren't related to seals. If he had something like the Kamui or Kagai's Yamatsu Hirosaka, he may have been able to discover a way back, but he didn't even know Hiraishin. Azazel looked at the blonde with a sad smile. He could understand what he was was going through to a degree, he too was forced to leave his home when he sinned and left behind a few people he cared about. "Well Naruto, the food is about ready now," he said as he picked up both pans from the oven top and split the food into 2 portions, walking over to table the governor of fallen angels, set down 2 plates, and sat down in front of one of them. "Well, you better start eating before it gets cold," he said before he started to eat himself. Naruto walked over to the table and sat in front of the other plate, looking at the food curiously. He picked up a piece of the meat and sniffed it a few times, not sensing anything wrong with it. He placed it in his mouth and started to eat. "It's good, not as good as ramen, but still good," Naruto commented as the two ate in silence. "Well, once we're finished here I'll start your training," Azazel said, leaving the table. Naruto finished shortly and walked after the man. "I guess the first thing we should do is learn just how much power you have," the fallen angel said as he led the blonde down a door into a massive underground training area. Naruto's jaw hung a bit loose as he looked around at the ever-expanding area. The entire place looked like a massive mountain range that extended far beyond the limits of his eyes. Looking back at the door they had passed through, he just saw nothing. "What the hell?" Naruto asked as he picked up one of the rocks to see if it was all real. It didn't take long before he was able to confirm that the entire place in fact a real place. It even had nature energy for him to absorb. "Nice, right? Took me forever to create the machine to make this possible," Azazel said to the blonde who looked at the man as he allowed his wings to come out of his back. Naruto took a step back at the sudden appearance of the 12 black wings that came out of Azazel's back. Azazel smirked at the face Naruto was making at the sight of his wings. An angel's wings are a way of indicating how powerful they are. One can range from a single pair, which is the weakest, to 6 pairs like mine, which is the highest rank. Now don't be sad if he wasn't able to finish as Naruto decided to try and summon his wings. 12 jet black wings bursted out of Naruto's back just like they did from the older man's a few moments ago. 12, Azazel yelled out. Naruto laughed a bit and scratched the back of his head. After he saw the wings he wanted to check how he compared to the man who gave him a second chance at life. It almost felt natural to him. It was like flexing his walking or flexing an arm. It felt like a part of his body. "I'm guessing this is a good thing?" Naruto asked the man who had quickly regained his composure. "Good? This is great," Azazel said as he counted the amount of wings Naruto had just to make sure he wasn't just seeing things. This was far beyond what he had expected. He had thought that it would have been something similar to what happened to a reincarnated devil, which rebirthed them as a low-level devil. "I never really expected this. However, I believe the best way to test one's power is through battle," Azazel said, getting into a stance. Naruto smiled and retracted his wings. As cool as they looked, he had no idea how to use them, nor did he know how they would affect his fighting. Started off by summoning over a dozen clones. Azazel's eyes widened at the sudden appearance of the multiple copies of the reincarnated fallen angel. To Naruto, nothing really felt any different other than feeling stronger overall. He could feel a second form of energy inside of him that wasn't chakra mixing into his chakra system, making his already powerful chakra even stronger and denser. Azazel ducked under one of the clone's punches and needed it in the stomach hard enough to destroy it. 2 other clones honed in on him. The elder fallen angel flew back as one of the clones tried to kick his legs out from under him, while the other one tried to kick his face. Before he could destroy them, 3 more clones came from behind holding kunes. 3 spears made out of light appeared and pierced through the clone's stomach before they could reach him. The 2 clones he had dodged before attempted to attack once again. Both were quickly destroyed by 2 quick punches from Azazel. "I got to admit, I never expected you to have something like this," the governor of the Grigori said to Naruto before kicking in another clone into one of the mountains. The real Naruto came out from behind the fallen angel and slammed a Rasengan into Azazel's back. The fallen angel went flying away from the group of clones by the force of the attack. Azazel stabilized himself in midair and waved his hand, sending several spears at the group of Narutos. The mass wave of spears of light was able to destroy every single clone left. "I hope that didn't kill him," Azazel said jokingly before Naruto appeared next to him. Crossing his arms, Azazel was able to block Naruto's kick, which sent him only a few feet back. Another spear appeared in Azazel's hand, which he used to block Naruto's Rasengan. Wielding the spear like a staff, he knocked away Naruto's hand and hit the blonde on the left side of his face, sending him into a large boulder. "I gotta admit, that attack you hit me with before hurt, but you're going to try harder if you want to beat me," Azazel taunted the blonde who stood up from the rubble. The Jinchuriki of all 9-tailed beasts smirked as he wiped a drop of blood from the corner of his lips. The hit to the face was comparable to one of his teammate Sakura's punches. "I'm going to make you regret those words," Naruto said, entering his Rikudo Senin mode. Azazel raised an eyebrow at Naruto's transformation. The clothing he had given the blonde had been completely replaced by a light-colored coat with a dark-colored bodysuit underneath that covers his torso that reached down his arms to the knuckles, down his legs, and stopped just above his sandals, which also changed color to a golden orange. It also had a light-colored circle, where his navel would have been, as well as golden magatama markings around his collar. The back of the coat was the image of Strange with 4 rings around a dot above 9 magatama. His eyes had changed, so that instead of being blue, they were yellow with a cross-like pupil. The 6 whisker markings on the blonde's face became thicker and now resembled rectangles. Naruto's hair was glowing the same color as his coat, and how had 2 horn-like banges. Behind him were 6 small black orbs. Naruto vanished from sight in a burst of speed and appeared in front of Azazel with a black rod in hand. The fallen angel sidestepped the attack and tried to pierce Naruto through chest with his spear, only for Naruto to push it out of the way with the palm of his left hand and kicking Azazel into a mountain. The rock surface cracked under the force of the collision, but the kick wasn't enough to seriously hurt Azazel. "Now that hurt," Azazel said before flying at Naruto, who flew into the air to avoid the incoming attack, taking off into the air. After the blonde, Azazel flew behind the blonde, who was slowly getting farther and farther away from him. "Get back here," Azazel yelled as he fired several spears of light at the flying blonde. Naruto stopped flying and used one of the black orbs behind him to form a shield which blocked the hail of attacks. Azazel flew past Naruto and drew a sword made out of pure light. The energy-covered blonde formed a black staff from one of the spheres behind him and charged at the black-winged angel. The 2 weapons collided with enough force to shatter some of the mountaintops. Azazel felt the bones in his arms crack from the force behind Naruto's attack, while Naruto relatively fine. The two fought for dominance for a few seconds before Naruto overtook him and knocked him back. Naruto formed a Bijidama in his right hand before firing it at the fallen angel. Azazel only had time to cover himself in his wings before the attack detonated on him. The black orb exploded in an explosion large enough that it damaged the surrounding mountains. Naruto was forced to cover himself in a spherical shield made from one of the Gudadama to avoid being injured by his own attack. Once the attack ended, Naruto floated inside the barrier in the middle of a massive crater. A few meters in front of him was Azazel, who despite using his wings to protect himself, had taken a large amount of damage compared to before, leaving him covered in a few burns. "You little bastard," Azazel said, chuckling as he wiped off dust from his arm. "Well, times for the kid gloves to come off," Azazel said, summoning a spear in each hand and charged at the blonde. Naruto formed 2 short staffs from his Gudadama and flew towards the incoming fallen angel. The 2 attacks collided with one another. Naruto spun it with the intent of knocking off the head of his savior, but Azazel managed to react in time and ducked under the attack and jabbed forward. The 2 clashed a few more times. Each time they did, they traded blow at speeds where they almost left after images. Azazel was the one to break off as he was taking far more damage from Naruto's much stronger attacks. Naruto flew back and turned both of the staff back into their original forms and raised his right hand up. "Senpu. Rasen Shuriken," Naruto yelled as he formed a massive orb made out of lava with 4 rotating blades spinning so fast they looked like a circular blade. Naruto threw the massive attack at the fallen angel, who flew away from the attack that was cutting through any mountains that got in the way. Azazel laughed as he formed a large spear of light and used it to intercept the Rasen Shuriken. He never expected Naruto's attack ripped right through his spear. The rapidly approaching attack slammed into him, sending him through several mountaintops before it expanded rapidly. Naruto watched as his attack detonated and created a dome of energy that dwarfed any of the mountains in the area. He was shocked how much larger it was compared to the one he used before during the war, even with the same amount of energy. Naruto slowed down and floated a few feet from the Grigori leader, laid with a smile on his face. His entire body was covered in small cuts. "So what did you think?" he asked the older man, who laughed at the question. "What did I think? I think I used my one chance to turn a human into a fallen angel on the perfect guy," he said, laughing, prompting Naruto to laugh as well. "I got to admit, I wish I had taken you seriously from the start. You completely caught me off guard with that transformation. But at least I can say you have 12 wings for a reason, and that's without knowing how to use light energy," Azazel said to the blonde, who smiled at the completement. However, he couldn't help but curse the blonde a bit because of the pain he was feeling. He had been shocked how powerful Azazel was. The man wasn't as near as strong as Kagaya or Madara in his final form, but he was comparable to Madara while he was under the Edo Tensei. "You didn't do that bad yourself," Naruto said to the fallen angel as he landed on solid ground. Looking at Azazel, he saw his body covered in burns from the explosion. His shirt had been completely incinerated by the blast, yet he was able to survive. "Thanks," he said to the blonde. His entire body stung from the attack he had taken. It felt like millions of needles made out of wind had tried to cut into him. Naruto smiled and placed his hand on his shoulder. Within a few seconds, all his burns had been healed completely. If he hadn't just confirmed that from that one attack he was at the level of a Satan, he would have been shocked by the blonde's ability to heal. "Next time we fight, I'll make sure to take you completely seriously. I don't want to feel that again," Azazel said, doing a few stretches. "Well, I guess we can stop for a break, then I can train you to fly." Naruto looked at him a bit confused as he started to float once again. "Did I hit you too hard?" "I can already fly," Naruto said questionably. Azazel chuckled. "I meant fly with you wings, unless you plan on transforming every time you need to fly. but I suggest you keep that as a last resort. Besides, by the time I'm done with you, we'll need to use it to kick ass," the semi-blonde man said to the Uzumaki, who smiled and nodded. He'll probably be able to curb stomp me," Azazel thought to himself, as he planned to enjoy the time he had to make the blonde pay. Now back in his base form, Naruto released his black wings like he had done before. It took him a few hours of practice before he was successfully able to get off the ground and remain stable. Azazel was having way too much fun watching Naruto fall down to the ground when he lost stability or crashed. To rub salt on the wound, he also decided that attempting to skewer the Jinchuriki with one of his spear would help further the training. This is going to be fun. The middle-aged looking man looked on as two figures flew around at outrageous speeds, clashing with each other. The man was rather gruff looking with black hair and a matching beard and a muscular body. Huge bursts of wind blew against him as the blurs collided. Tatu aren't pulling any punches, he said to himself while watching the fast-paced battle. I can't believe that kid is keeping up with Azazel. The two combatants stopped their movement to catch their breaths. The first one was none other than Azazel, who was covered in bruises and his left arm seemed limp. The other one was someone who had taken everyone in the Grigori by surprise. His name was Naruto Uzumaki, and one of the few angels, let alone fallen angel, in the world who had 12 wings. He didn't know where he came from, nor did he know how someone with that level of power had kept himself hidden from everyone for so long. The only person who really knew who he was his leader and friend Azazel, who was also the one who brought him into their faction. Only enough, while Naruto seemed to have the power of a seraph, he had no idea how to use any of his powers. Azazel only told him that he even had to be taught how to fly at first. However, that was 3 months ago, and since then the blonde had learned how to fly like the best of them and was slightly faster than Azazel himself. Even if he could barely make more than one spear of light at the moment, yet he had several jutsu, as he called them, which blew anything he could pull off out of the water. The only people he could compare the boy in terms of power to would be the Sirzechs and the Satans of the Devils. The move he had seen the most of had been an orb of energy he called Rasengan. Whenever he had been able to see Naruto fight a stray devil which attacked them, the move was easily able to decimate the body of anything less than a high-level devil. Overall, he knew next to nothing about the boy other than he was always at Azazel's side after he was introduced into the faction and was a decent man. It did bother him that his friend had kept almost all information about their new ally from him, but he knew that for whatever reasons it was for the best at the moment. His watch started beeping. Looking down, he saw that the timer he had set had ran to 0. Azazel, time's up. He called out of his friend. The semi-blonde looked over at him and waved him off before forming another spear of light and charging at the younger fallen angel. Naruto also ignored the muscular man in favor of charging at Azazel. Instead of a spear, he formed his own spear in his right hand. The man watched as the two collided with one another one last time. The two attacks fought for supremacy for a few seconds before Azazel's spear broke through Naruto's and stopped at the blonde's throat. I win, Azazel said, smirking as he let his spear disappear and flew a few feet back. You still need to get better control over your light magic, the leader of the Grigori said to the former shinobi, who frowned. He had been trying to gain control over the new energy, but it was just like trying to control his chakra when he was a genin. If I could use chakra I would have won, Naruto mumbled to himself, but was heard by Azazel, who laughed a bit. They had agreed that he wouldn't use his chakra in their training, since he already had control over it, and the training was to get him to use his new powers. Naruto, this is to help you get control over your new body and powers, Azazel said before looking over to see the muscular man flying over to them. Brachial, what do you think of my young student? He's coming along quite nicely if I must say so myself, he said, laughing as he smiled back at Naruto, who flew over to him. Hey, how are you, Mr. Masochist? Naruto asked, causing his teacher to laugh madly at the nickname the blonde had given his friend. He may or may not have told the Naruto a few too many things about some of the other angels. Brachial eyes narrowed on the blonde, who was enjoying the annoyed look on the fallen angel's face. You told him that? Brachial asked Azazel, who scratched the back of his head while laughing nervously. Never mind, you're late for your meeting with the leader of the yokai in Kyoto, he said to his leader, who looked a bit annoyed that he had to go to a meeting. Azazel rubbed his chin for a few seconds, trying to figure out how to get out of going to the meeting. Sometimes he hated being the leader of the Grigori. His gaze turned onto Naruto, who was making fun of Brachial. Then it hit him. Naruto, as part of your training you have to go to this meeting in my place and work out a treaty to stop fighting between some of our more troublesome members and their yokai, Azazel said in a grandiose fashion as he found a way to get out of the meeting. Naruto's neck nearly snapped when he turned at Azazel. What? You just want to get out of doing your job? Naruto accused his teacher, who smirked at him. Brachial couldn't help but sigh at the way the two acted. He should have known that his old friend would try and pull something like this. Sorry, but you need to learn how to deal with some of the other factions in this world, Azazel said smugly, as he justified a reason for passing over his responsibility to his young student. Now get to it, he said to the blonde, who mumbled insults towards the older fallen angel. Naruto flew towards the door of the training area and left Brachial and Azazel to spiel. Do you think that was a good idea? Brachial questioned his friend. He didn't know or trust the new member of their group as much as Azazel. There were just too many questions floating around him that only Azazel seemed to know the answers to, yet he kept them from him. This is a very sensitive mission, and a misstep could lead to further conflict between some of our men and the yokai. Azazel just waved him off and flew towards the door Naruto had left through. He'll be fine. Trust me when I say that kid could turn even Trihexa into his friend. Well, maybe that to that extent, but I'm sure he can make a deal with Yasaka, he said as he left the training area with Barakiel behind him. I don't trust him, Barakiel said to his friend who looked back with a slight frown. I know I haven't told you much about him, but I know he can be trusted, Azazel said to the bearded man who frowned a bit before accepting the fact that he won't be able to convince the stronger fallen angel. But Naruto, where the fuck is Kyoto? Naruto yelled as he flew over the country called Japan. He had realized after he left that he had no idea where the meeting was to take place. He had been flying around the island country for about 10 minutes, and he couldn't tell which city was which. I really should have paid attention when Azazel tried to get me to learn geography, Naruto said in his head. Maybe sage mode would help, Naruto said to himself as he stopped to gather some energy from nature. He had learned early on that the energy of this world had some kind of malevolent feel to it, but it didn't hold a candle to how Kurama's chakra used to be, so for him it was easy to ignore. It only took seconds for him to enter his base sage mode. Scanning over the area, he tried to find where the strongest yokai was. He had learned early on how to tell apart each faction. It only took him a few moments before he located the strongest yokai near him and hoped that was indeed Yasaka. The blonde descended from the sky and into an alleyway where he pulled his wings back into his body. He quickly made his way to where the sources of the power was, and he couldn't help but sigh in relief when he found that it was indeed Yasaka sitting in a booth in a tea house. Yasaka was a beautiful young woman with golden blonde hair and a matching set of eyes. She wore a shrine maiden outfit that covered her voluptuous figure from the world. Beside her was a young girl who had the appearance of an elementary school student. She had golden blonde hair that is tied in a ponytail and matching eyes. She also had 9 golden fox tails and matching ears. Yasaka-san, I assume? Naruto asked using the honorific since he wasn't dealing with someone like Azazel who didn't care for them much. The blonde woman nodded and smiled at the blonde before looking a bit confused. Noticing her confusion, Naruto connected it with the fact that he wasn't the person she was expecting. Azazel was held up with some business, so he sent me in his place. I hope that isn't a problem. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, by the way, Naruto said as he sat down on the other side of the table. That isn't a problem at all, Yasaka said to the blonde male. True, she was a bit annoyed that the Grigori leader sent a subordinate in his place, but she would take what she could get. While we wait for the tea to come, let's start our discussion, she said, looking more serious than before. Some members of your group have been causing problems in Kyoto. I have lost a few members of my faction to these attacks. I would appreciate it if you and Azazel could find a way to get them to stop, she stated politely yet at the same time sternly. Azazel never gave them an order to attack any member of other factions including yours. Those that are either taking their liberties too far or are traitors. If you know the location where they are hiding, I would gladly take care of your problem, Naruto said calmly. This was all very unusual for him. He had rarely been put in a spot where one misstep on his part of the negotiations could lead to a war between two factions. It's reassuring to know that these attacks weren't ordered. Some of my men have discovered that they are hiding out in one of the older churches that was abandoned last year due to their presence. If you don't mind me asking, how will you deal with them? The blonde woman asked the blonde who was looking at the 9 tails coming out of the younger girl's back. Simple, I will ask them to leave the city at once. If they refuse, then I will have no other choice but to brand them as traitors and either capture them to be imprisoned or kill them. Yasaka frowned at the mention of killing, but accepted it as long as the members of her group were safe. Now if you don't mind me asking, is it true that you and your daughter are both 9-tailed foxes? He asked the woman. Yes it is, why do you ask? Yasaka asked Naruto, who was about to respond before he felt a young girl climbing up next to him and smelling him. Kunu, what are you doing? It's not polite to smell other people without asking, she tried to scold her daughter. He smells like one of us, Kachan. He smells like a kitsune and other yokai, Kunu said to her mother as she continued sniffing the blonde who was a bit taken back by the fact that she could tell that he had at one point been connected to a 9-tailed fox. Yasaka was also a bit shocked since she had never expected to find a fallen angel with the scent of one of her own. Naruto laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. That's actually something that I would rather keep to myself about, he said before looking a bit somber. He hadn't heard a thing from the Biju that were supposed to be inside of him. None of them, not even Kurama, had been in contact with him, yet he could still use all their powers and his 6th-path sage mode. Let's just say that I was very close friends with one, he said. Yasaka's mind was still on the subject of the man before her being somehow related to another Kyuubi. She was sure that there weren't many, if none other than those in her family, But the way the younger blonde reacted, she could tell that it was a sore subject, so she decided to leave it be for now. Well, that is perquiller, but is past and not our place to poke at Kunu, the mother said to her child, who despite this stayed at Naruto's side. Thank you, Yasaka-san, Naruto said to the elder kitsune, who smiled at him. Now if that's all that we have to discuss, I think I should go ahead and deal with the traitors giving your group a hard time, Naruto said as politely as he possibly could. Yasaka laughed a bit at how hard the blonde had been trying to act politely. Why don't you stay for some tea, Naruto-san? I already ordered, and I won't want it to go to waste, the mother said to Naruto, who thought for a minute before deciding to stay at least for a bit. After all, it won't hurt to get to know the leader of a faction, would it? Oh, and please stop forcing yourself to act so stiff. Naruto sighed a bit in relief as he relaxed a bit. Thanks, I just didn't want to offend you. I'm not really one for formalities, Naruto said with a small chuckle. So aren't you worried that someone will ask about Kunu-chan's tales? Naruto asked Yasaka, ignoring the pout on the younger kitsune's face. Thank you for your concern for my daughter, but this tea house is owned by another yakai, so it isn't a problem, she answered Naruto's question. If you don't mind me asking, how powerful are you? I heard that angels and fallen angels are classified by how many sets of wings they have, Yasaka asked Naruto, who thought about how he should respond. On one hand, she had asked how many wings he had, which he knew he couldn't keep hidden for long. However, he wasn't going to freely tell everyone about his Rakuto Senin mode. Well, I can't really tell you everything, but at the moment I have 12 wings, Naruto said, much to both Yasaka and Kuna's surprise. There were only a handful of angels that had 12 wings, and even among them only one was a fallen angel. Well, until now it seemed. But that would put you on the same level as a Satan, she said in awe at the blonde. Even though many angels and devils were really older than they looked, she could tell that the blonde in front of her was the age he looked like. Naruto couldn't help but feel proud of himself, knowing that people seemed to have some sort of respect for his power. I am honored that such a powerful being took the time to help us, she said with a slight bow. It's no problem, after all I finally get to meet a few people like my old friend, he said, remembering Kurama. He was a kitsune like you, only less polite and not as cute, Naruto said before covering his mouth. Shit, Naruto said to himself. Little known fact was that Azazel's perverseness had rubbed off on Naruto a bit. He wouldn't call himself a pervert, but he would admit to appreciating the female form. Yasaka blushed a bit at being called cute, but couldn't stop, but giggled a bit when her door lightly punched the male blonde. Don't flirt with Kachan, Kunu said to the blonde, who laughed a bit before an elderly man holding a tray with a few filled teacups walked over and placed the tray on the table. Ah, Yasaka-sama, it's always a pleasure here, the old man said before turning to former shinobi observed as the man took a few curious sniffs at the air around him. Kitsune? He asked himself curiously. No fallen angel? The man said before he started listing all the creatures Naruto sent reminded him of. Nekomata? He asked before looking at Naruto in the eye. What are you? He asked. Naruto tried to maintain a nervous smile. I'm a fallen angel. Then why do you reek of yakai? The old man yelled at the blonde before turning to Yasaka to see her blushing lightly, then at Kunu, who was sitting next to the blonde man. Ah. You're Kuna's father. He accused before hitting Naruto over the head with a wooden spoon. How dare you leave Yasaka by herself to raise a child? He yelled at the blonde, who couldn't help but be a bit confused by the accusations. Before he could say anything else to Naruto, Yasaka spoke up. Please calm down, Jai-san. Naruto-san isn't Kuna's father. This is actually the first time we've met. The yakai leader tried to calm down the angered old man who looked over at her before putting away the wooden spoon and walking away, but not before throwing one last glare at Naruto. I'm sorry, but Hess very protective of other yakai, she said with a small laugh. If you don't mind me asking, what happened to Kuna's father? I assume he was a kitsune as well, Naruto asked. He immediately regretted it when he saw the saddened look on Yasaka's face. He may have been a little dense, but even he knew some things were too personal. You don't have to answer then if you don't want to, Naruto said, taking back his question. I prefer not to talk about it, let's just say Hess out of my life, she said venomously at the mention of the man who sired her daughter. Even Kunuo looked a bit down from the thought of her father. The 12-winged angel couldn't help but feel bad. He may have expected them to be a little negative about the man, considering how the other man talked about him, but even then he never expected her to change so drastically. Not knowing what to say, Naruto picked up one of the teacups and started drinking an uniced with the blonde woman. I just had to open my big mouth, Naruto scolded himself in his head. What would Azazel do at this point? Have with her? An imaginary chibi, Azazel said in his head. Never mind, Naruto deadpanned. Worst thing was that he was sure that was exactly what the older fallen angel would tell him to do. Damn pervert, he cursed. Looking up, he saw that Yasaka had finished her tea while he was in his own little world. After you deal with the fallen angels, I invite you to stay the night in the temple I run. It's the least I could do for your service, she said, smiling at him. It was then that Naruto decided for the first time to use his empathic powers to see how she was feeling. It only made him feel worse as he felt that under the smile she had on was a deep sadness. Yes. What have I done? Naruto said to himself in thought before smiling at the blonde yokai. Thank you for your offer. I think he'll take you up on that, Naruto said before standing up. I have to go take care of those traitors before they cause any more problems. He'll find you after I'm done, he said to Yasaka, who nodded and watched him walk to the door before he stopped and waved before exiting. After Naruto left, Yasaka's smile fell a bit as the old man walked over to her and gave her a comforting pat on the shoulder. But Naruto, the blonde fallen angel, quickly took to the sky as he flew over to the church where his targets hid. His eyes narrowed as he used his sage mode to sense how many were in there. He felt at least 10 former Grigori members and even a few humans that seemed to be helping them. Well, times to do this, Naruto said to himself before flying through a cracked window made of stained glass. Everyone inside turned to see Naruto land in the middle of the room. The blonde couldn't help but gag a bit at the sight of all the head yokai bodies. Blood stained everything from the floors to the ceiling. The apparent leader of the group now stood in front of him. Well, if it isn't Azazel's little bitch. I never expected that bastard pacifist to actually send someone to hunt yous. Too bad it's just one runt, the traitor said to Naruto, who narrowed his eyes on him. All around them the remaining fallen angels and humans formed a circle around the blonde. This is your last chance. Come with me peacefully and face your punishment or die here. And now, Naruto threatened them. The man only laughed before pointing at him, which signaled his group to attack. You asked for it, Naruto said as he created an orange spear of light and drove it through one of the humans. One of the fallen angels flew towards him from behind, only to have her nose broken. But Naruto, when he pulled his spear out of the human's cut, hitting her with the butt of the spear, Naruto spun around and used the spear to spear her up the throat and into her brain. More and more angels tried to assault him, but all were met with nothing but death. The leader was a bit unnerved now that he saw how the man he called Azazel's bitch was now killing his men like it was going out of fashion, and all with one spear. They couldn't even touch him with any of their attacks. Before he knew it, he was the last one left alive, not counting the man who had killed all his subordinates. Damn you to hell, he yelled as he revealed his 3 sets of wings and flew at the blonde, who scowled. Naruto easily dodged the traitor's sloppy attack and hit him in the left temple with a twirl of his spear. The man went flying into the back of the church. As he stood up, he looked up to see Naruto throw the spear at him. He attempted to dodge the attack. However, Naruto's attack was far faster than his reaction time. The blonde frowned as he looked at the man who was now stuck to the wall thanks to his spear. He never liked killing, but he knew that some people or creatures needed to die for peace to exist. It was the sad truth he learned during the war, and even now he was still learning. Now that this is over, with Naruto said before walking out of the church, I get a vacation day. He yelled before flying off, hoping to get the memory of the church out of his head. Later that night, Naruto sighed as he sunk into the warm waters of the hot spring. After months of training, he finally had a day to relax a bit. Leaning against one of the rocks that made up the border of the hot spring, he could almost fall asleep. You can use Senjutsu Naya. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he jumped back away from whoever had spoken. Looking at the speaker, he saw a woman who matched or even surpassed Yasaka in terms of beauty. She was a young woman with a curvy figure and long black hair with split bangs. Her eyes were a shade of hazel with cat-like pupils. Her attire consisted of a black kimono, a yellow obi, a set of golden beads, and an ornately detailed headband. The kimono featured a red interior, and it is opened at her shoulders, giving view to her large breasts. Naruto blushed a bit at the fact that he was only wearing a towel, but still kept the discipline of a shinobi. Who are you? Naruto asked the mysterious woman who had appeared without him noticing. The fact that she was able to get past his senses was very impressive in his mind. My name is Kuroka Naya, she introduced herself as she walked towards Naruto, who aimed his arm at her. The raven-haired beauty stopped her advances when she saw the top of Naruto's hand raised to reveal a hidden weapon. Why so serious, Naya? I just wanted to ask you a few questions. She tried to get the blonde to lower his weapon. If the weapon was what she thought it was, she knew she wouldn't want to stay on end of the barrel she was on. Depends what you want to ask, Naruto said to the woman. Before I answer anything, you are going to tell me why you are here, Naruto said as he let out his wing to try and intimidate the woman. This seemed to have the opposite effect, however, as the woman simply smiled at him. Well, I was wandering around the city when I felt someone using Senjutsu. Naturally, only extremely power yokai could use it, Naya, she said as she walked closer to Naruto, who never took his eyes off her. Imagine my surprise when I find out that the man wasn't a yokai but a fallen angel. How do you know I can use Senjutsu? Naruto asked her. In his mind, however, he was slowly recalling a memory from one of Azazel's lessons about the other creatures in this world. However, learning such medial things were never his strong suit. If anything, it reminded him of the academy. Teach him a new attack. Hell, learn it in a week, make him sit through a lecture. No. The woman smirked a bit. Because I can use Senjutsu too, Naya, she said, winking at the blonde who raised an eyebrow at her statement. Yeah, he knew that some in this world could use Senjutsu, but from what Azazel told him, it was only a handful of yokai who knew how to do so because of malice in the world. But back to what I was saying, once I found you using my Senjutsu and being up close, I can even feel and even smell some Nekomata in you. I guess you can say that I'm very interested in you, Naruto Naya, she said, leaning forward, giving the blonde a better view of her cleavage. peerage. I remember now, you're the stray devil Kuroka. Apparently you killed your master when drunk with power, Naruto said as he finally remembered the lecture on stray devils. He didn't remember much, only that she was very powerful and dangerous. That's me, Naya. You still haven't told me what you want with me, Naruto said, lowering his arm cannon, as he could confirm that she had no ill intentions towards him. But he did feel something he felt from some of the female fallen angels, but he wasn't sure exactly what it was. I doubt a devil, especially a stray devil, would willing walk up to fallen angel just for a chat, Naruto said to the busty Catwoman, walked up and pressed her body into his. I want powerful babies to revive my species, Naya, she told him bluntly, which caused Naruto's jaw to drop before he used a quick substitution to get away. Oh come on, she said, pouting at him. Sorry lady, but I'm not ready to have kids with anyone, especially a woman I just met. Naruto's response was he crossed his arms. The woman only smiled even more and walked over to him, swaying her hips in an attempt to captivate him. Be it the fallen angel in him or the fact that every teacher he had been a massive pervert, he couldn't help but follow with his eyes. And should you really be asking a fallen angel to help you? Why not another yokai? Naruto asked her. Kuroka giggled a bit at the question. That's because I want to have the strongest children I can, Naya. And no yokai can compare to the power I sense from you, she said as she jumped onto him and gave him a small lick on the cheek. So what do you say? I'm flattered, but I don't think it's a good idea having a kid with someone you just met, Naruto said before substituting himself with a wooden bucket. Kuroka frowned and threw the bucket out from under her. Sorry, but like I said, if I'm going to have a child, it's with someone I know and love, not some random cat girl who wants me for my sperm, Naruto elaborated. He really didn't feel like being used as a sperm bank. Besides, what would happen if he had a kid with his brand of chakra? Just look what his world had done with it. Oh? She said sadly before her head perked up. Well, maybe I could get to know you better, she said, getting closer to him. What you say, Naya? She asked him as she stopped a few away from him. He quickly checked her again to see if she had any ulterior motives, which he strangely found none. It seemed she really wanted to revive her race and wanted him to help her do it. Do it? The chibi Azazel in his head screamed at him. Next to the miniature Azazel was Kakashi and Jiraiya holding up a banner telling him to accept the date. Naruto sighed. Stupid perverted senseis, he muttered to himself before deciding on what he should do about the offer he was just given. He couldn't deny that she was extremely good looking, and she seemed to be fun to be around if the way she acted was any indication. Fine, but I'm not having kids or with you until I at least get to know you, Naruto said, much to her joy. Yay. Naruto watched as the woman cheered. I finally took the first step to reviving my race, Naya. Naruto smiled, but then heard what she said. Oi, I never agreed to help you with it yet, he yelled before he felt a smaller hand wrap around his own and pull him out of the hot springs. Naruto sighed as he laid on his bed. It had taken him a bit of time to get away from Kuroka after they had gotten out of the bathhouse. Normally he could just hide with Senjutsu, however the busty woman was also able to harness power from the area around them, even if it was to a lesser level. Naruto-kun. The blonde looked up to see Yasaka walk into the room he had been allowed to use for the night. The blonde was able to see a silver tray with a teapot with 2 cups in her hands. Naruto sat up as he watched the kitsune place tray on the table and poured a cup of green tea and handed it to him. What's up, Yasaka-san? Don't you think that it's a bit late for tea? Naruto asked the blonde woman as he took the cup in his hands and blew a bit to cool it down. I had to stay up late to check on the ley lines in Kyoto, Yasaka answered as she took a sip from her own cup of tea. One of the groundskeepers said he heard quite a bit of commotion coming from the bath. I was curious about what had happened, she added. Naruto looked away, looking a bit embarrassed. Oh, I see, you were with a girl, Yasaka concluded from the look on the fallen angel's face. What? No. I mean yes, but we didn't do anything, Naruto yelled out comically, which earned him a giggle from the powerful yokai. Sorry, I was ambushed by a yokai who wanted me to, I guess, marry her. Naruto elaborated on the situation. Yasaka made an understanding ah sound, but looked a bit down. I see, so what ended up happening? Yasaka asked. She was surprisingly interested in what had occurred in her area while she was away on business. She couldn't help but feel a small pinch-like feeling in her chest at the thought. It didn't make much sense to her, but for now she would ignore it. Naruto scratched the back of his head. I told her that after we got to know each other better that I would consider it, he answered. Yasaka frowned at the response, but kept her composure as she had throughout the conversation. I'm not really sure what I should do, but hey, I would never get anything done if I didn't try new things, the blonde said, laughing a bit. That is true, Naruto-kun. You know Kunu has grown quite fond of you already. She kept asking question about you even after you had left, she said to the blonde, who smiled. Shess never really had a father figure or a brother. The closest Shess ever had to a paternal bond was with some of the yokai who help us out, she told Naruto. The Jinchuriki couldn't help but express a bit of sadness at the fact that the poor girl never knew her own father. How about tomorrow I take Kunu to the park? Naruto suggested. He couldn't just leave the situation as it was, even if he was limited on time, and that Azazel would probably get annoyed that he stayed an extra day. But hey, this was to build relations with the yokai, so this could count as part of his mission, right? I would appreciate it, Yasaka said, smiling softly at Naruto. The two continued to talk a bit before Yasaka left for her own room, saying that Naruto was happy that Yasaka had forgiven him for bringing up Kuno's father was an understatement. Just like he said, Naruto had taken Kuno to the park near one of the shrines that dotted the area they were in. Naruto smiled as he pushed Kuno, who was sitting on one of the swings. It brought a smile to his face as he heard the girl laughing in joy. Naruto was happy that he could give her this moment. Kuno reminded him of himself a bit. While she had a mother, she was busy with her job as the leader of the yokai, and her father was a mystery to him, but he seems to have hurt Yasaka deeply when he left. Hey Kuno-chan, how about we get some ice cream? Naruto asked the young kitsune when he saw a man pushing a cart selling ice cream cones to the people. He didn't know why, but he was getting a strange feeling from the man, a rather teen. He was a handsome young man with short blonde hair, gray eyes and a mole under his left eye. The teen was currently wearing an outfit advertising the company that made the product he was selling, a devil. Naruto asked himself, laughing a bit. It assumed him to think how someone could potentially kill hundreds of humans, was selling them food. He never understood their system, but considering it he wasn't from the faction he couldn't judge. Yeah. The young kitsune yelled as she jumped off the swings and ran towards the cart. Naruto laughed when he heard her demand all the flavors stacked one on top of the others. Surprisingly, the devil was able to do so without messing up much. Naruto made sure to leave a decent-sized tip for the effort he was put through by the kitsune. How are you liking it? Naruto asked the young girl, who pouted a bit when Naruto patted her on the head. Well, Kuno still acted like someone her age, that also included acting like she was a princess. Oh wait, she is, Naruto thought to himself before laughing quietly. Before they could continue, Naruto heard a ringing in his pocket. It was something Azazel had called a smartphone, which acted at its base like a communicator. Naruto, something important has come up. I need you to return as soon as possible, Azazel said from the other side of the line. Naruto frowned a bit as he looked down at Kuno, was happily licking her ice cream. He didn't want to leave just yet, since he wanted to get to know Yasaka and Kuno a bit more, but going from the tone Azazel had used, it wasn't really a matter for discussion. It'll be right there, Naruto responded with a heavy sigh as he hung up the phone and returned it to its spot in his pocket. Kuno-chan, I have to go now, I'll take you back home, the blonde said to the young kitsune, who looked saddened at the fact that he was leaving. But why? Don't you want to play with me? She asked with tears building in her eyes. He was the first person who ever taken her to the park without having some sort of obligation to her mother. I don't want you to leave, she yelled at him. I know, but don't worry, I'll be back, Naruto said as he picked her up and placed her on his shoulder. But how about we have some fun on the way home, Kuno-chan? Naruto asked, getting cheers from the girl. Naruto gathered his chakra and jumped several feet into the air and landed on one of buildings before. The young nine-tailed fox screamed in excitement as Naruto jumped massive distances across the city. She had never moved at this level of speed before. Naruto laughed as he gathered even more chakra into his legs and jumped up even higher. With that final leap, Naruto landed in the middle of the garden behind Yasaka's temple. Here we go, Naruto said as he took Kuno off his back and placed her on the ground. I have to go now, Kuno, but like I said, I'll come back, I promise, Naruto said to the girl, who nodded sadly and hugged him. The two were unaware that Yasaka was there watching them with a soft smile on her face. Even if they had only known each other for 2 days, they had already created a close bond with one another. It touched Yasaka's heart to her daughter having fun. Come on Kuno, Naruto-san has to return to his work, the elder kitsune said to her daughter, who pouted but walked inside, but not without giving Naruto one final wave. I hope you enjoyed your stay, Naruto-kun, and I truly hope you visit us again, Yasaka said, giving the fallen angel a deep bow. I did, thank you for letting me stay the night. I make sure to visit regularly, Naruto said, giving Yasaka a charming smile which brought forth a light blush from the yokai leader's cheeks. Naruto released his wings in all their glory. Yasaka still couldn't help but wonder how no one knew of this man's existence beforehand. With a final two-figure salute, Naruto took off into the air. Grigori headquarters. It only took Naruto a few hours of flying at a rather leisurely pace to arrive back at the base. As he flew in her, saw several lesser-ranked angel. He couldn't help but frown at the bloodthirsty look some of them had on as they left the area. He flew right into Azazel's office, where the man was reading a rather dirty magazine, before he heard the former shinobi flying in. Ah, Naruto-kun, you came quicker than I thought you would, Azazel said to the blonde, who sighed as he sat down in one of the many cushioned chairs in the office. Now the reason I called you back is because a few of the devils and angels have in a sense caught wind of you, or rather rumors are starting to pop up every once in a while. The leader of the Grigori said as he handed Naruto a file with several sheets of paper, listing the many rumors that had been made about him. They ranged from him being a secret weapon made by the biblical god gone gone wrong to him being the results of Azazel's experiments, that last one however was not too far off. I know that like most fallen angels I by no means have full control over your actions, but I highly recommend that you try and stay out of the supernatural world for a bit, Azazel explained to Naruto his thoughts. He didn't want to deal with the massive headache that he would have to face when Heaven found out that he had turned a human into a seraph-level angel who was fallen from the start. Naruto sighed as he leaned his head into his right hand. This is in the words of an old friend troublesome. I really don't feel like having to hide. Maybe I could lay low for a while. But I refuse to just hide away like a coward, Naruto stated to the man who gave him a new life. Azazel frowned a bit before his face nearly split as he gained a new idea. I have a great idea. How about you stay in Kyoto for the unforeseen future while I try to kill off some of the rumors, Azazel suggested. Unknown to the blonde he had sent Barakiel after Naruto just to make sure that nothing went wrong with the negotiations. The surprise he got when he found out that his little student had become quite close with the known criminal Kuroka was followed by glee as he thought of how his faction would further benefit from a union between the two. Naruto barely had to think before agreeing to Azazel's suggestion. He had quickly become close with the two kitsune who lived in the area, plus he knew that Kuroka had been following him on his trip to the park. Azazel was glad that the former shinobi had accepted his suggestion and thus gave him more time to plan on how he would handle Naruto's reveal. One last thing Naruto, Azazel said as he handed Naruto a few more files. I have set up a mission to Kuo to keep track of potentially powerful sacred gear. I fear that if it becomes active, then the human might go berserk. That is why I plan on having this team help keep it dormant until he becomes a devil. This mission is to be led by the fallen angel Raynor, who has requested to bring Issei and Middled. I wanted to know what you thought. The leader of the Grigori asked the blonde who frowned as he read over the mission. I don't like it, Naruto said after a few minutes of silence. Azazel sighed to himself since he knew how his protege would react to what he had planned in the mission. It was common knowledge in their faction that Naruto disliked many of its members and had actively fought against a few. Then they acted out. Many despised him as the hunter of those who continued to try and disturb the peace the supernatural world was currently in. What don't you like about it, Naruto? Naruto glared at Azazel for a split second before putting the files down with a heavy sigh. All three members of the team you put together are extremely prone to violence. I fear that they may attack and try to kill the target on devil grounds. I suggest that we send someone who we can at least trust to report back to us any activity that goes against the mission, Naruto said to Azazel, who mulled over the suggestion Naruto had brought up. Very well, I agree with you that we need at least one member of the team being at least loyal to me, Azazel said, agreeing with the blonde as he stood up and pulled out a few more files with the information of several other fallen angels. Because of our limited numbers, we only have a few people we could possibly send out. Normally I would choose you, but given the issue surrounding your existence I need someone else, Azazel explained to Naruto. The two looked over the files of the Grigori members who weren't assigned to anything. Here, Naruto shouted, getting the elder fallen angel's attention. Her name is Raynor-chan. I worked with her a few times in the past. While she has her quirks, she is still loyal to you, Naruto said, blushing a bit. Azazel couldn't help but smirk a bit when he saw the blonde blush, but restrained himself from commenting. I see, Azazel said to himself as he read over her file. Overall she hadn't done anything as bad as the other three had in the past and had more or less followed his rules. Having Naruto vouch for her was also a huge plus for her since Naruto, while being the youngest fallen angel, was easily one of the most powerful beings in the known world. Very well, I have her added to the team, Azazel said as he sat back in his chair and relaxed. So I heard you had a run-in with a certain stray cat during your stay in Kyoto. Would that be a reason you are so eager to return him? Azazel teased his now bright red student who dashed out of the office. Azazel laughed loudly before opening a drawer and pulling out a small orange book he had found sealed in a strange tattoo on Naruto while he was unconscious. He had to admit that whoever wrote them was a genius of the highest caliber. 3 months later, Naruto sat at a dinner table with Yasaka and her little daughter Kunu. After that day when he learned that he already had become a thing of rumors, he had lived with the two yokai in secret from the outside world. In those 3 months his bond with Yasaka and Kunu had nearly reached that of a real family. He made sure to help Yasaka with any and all problems she was having around the area, and always made sure to leave time to play with Kunu. The ramen was amazing, Yasaka-chan, Naruto said, smiling brightly at the yokai who gave him a warm smile in return. Kunu smiled at how the two older supernatural beings interacted with one another before getting off her chair and skipping off to her room. The blonde fallen angel stood up as well and picked up the bowl he had eaten from and brought it over to the sink where another yokai who worked for Yasaka was washing the dishes. Naruto-kun, I have a meeting with a high-ranking devil today, Yasaka said with a hint of sadness entering her voice. Every time she had to meet with a faction who wasn't aware of Naruto, he had to hide away lest he be discovered. The worst part was that sometimes her guests would stay for a few days. I see, Naruto responded in a depressed voice, knowing that he would have to hide for the rest of the day. Ugh, sorry for the inconvenience, Yasaka. I know that having me live with you guys is a huge burden, the blonde said as he walked with Yasaka to Kuna's room to inform her. The two knew that if she wasn't informed then she would without a doubt look for the male blonde, which could lead to his discovery. Naruto-kun, you aren't a burden, Yasaka said to the sage, who smiled in return. He could tell that the kitsune wasn't lying when she said that. The door to Kuna's room was opened by Yasaka, who walked in, followed by Naruto closely behind. The young kitsune's room was perfectly clean minus a desk where several drawings littered the table. Chess not here. Yasaka hummed to herself before looking over at the desk to see a drawing of her and her daughter standing with Naruto in front of their home. Yasaka blushed a bit at what the picture was implying with the words above them which read, my family. The kitsune quickly glanced at Naruto was waiting for her at the entrance to the room, since they hadn't found Kunu. They're here, Naruto said as he sensed two very powerful beings, and a smaller yet still as decently strong younger one teleporting near the entrance of the temple. I'm sorry Yasaka-chan, but you should go greet them, I'll go hide, Naruto said before running off to his hiding location. Yasaka frowned before going off to greet her guest. As she walked she couldn't help but bring her hand over her heart, which she felt beating at a rapid pace. She didn't know how it had happened, but over the time that Naruto had lived with them, she had become fond of the fallen angel. There had only been one other time when she felt anything near this, and she preferred not to think about it. No, Naruto-kun isn't like him. Hello Yasaka Dono. The kitsune was snapped out of her thoughts by the words spoken by a young man with shoulder-length crimson red hair that neared the color of blood and blue-green eyes. The man wore an expensive-looking black suit with a red tie. Next to him was a beautiful woman appearing to be in her early 20s, with silver hair and matching eyes. Her hair, which flows all the way down to her back, featured a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. She wore a blue and white French-made outfit with long sleeves and a white-made headdress. The last one looked very similar to the red-haired man, only that she was female. She was a beautiful young woman who appeared to be in her late teens with flawless pale skin, blue-green eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also had loose bangs covering her forehead and framed her face. Yasaka couldn't help but feel a bit self-conscious in the presence of the two incredibly beautiful women. Sorry for keeping you waiting. How about we talk over a cup of tea, Yasaka said as she led the group inside of the temple which she and her family lived in. A small smile graced her face when she noticed the group following her, looking at the many works of art that decorated her halls. As the group settled down, the woman who she came to know as Grafie, addressed as a maid, decided or rather insisted that she make the tea for the group and left them to speak while she did her duties. As she made her way to the kitchen, she noticed a young blonde kitsune running into a door that blended into the wall. Her curiosity got the better of her as she followed after the girl. Before she could enter the hidden room she heard her king calling for her. The silver-haired devil sighed before returning to her duties. It wasn't her job to question the secrets of someone else's home. For now she would return to her master. She gave one last look back to see Kunu running out of the secret passage with a large smile on her face. Pushing the thoughts about the hidden area of the temple, she rejoined Sirzechs and Rias, who were still talking to Yasaka. I heard a rumor of a fallen angel with 12 wings being spotted in the area, Sirzechs stated, getting a surprised look from both his sister and herself. She hadn't been informed of that specific rumor. Rias' eyes widened at the mention of a fallen angel. Yasaka frowned when Sirzechs said that. She knew what and who he was talking about, but she refused to betray the trust Naruto had given her when he asked her to stay. I'm sorry Lucifer Dono, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, we did have some problems with a few of them who were hiding out in one of the old churches. None of them had the level of power that you are implying. Yasaka lied to the three. The leader of the devil faction closed his eyes and nodded. He knew from the way that the yokai was speaking that he wasn't going to get anything else out of her. I see, he said as he downed another cup of tea, which was promptly refilled by his queen. Well, either way I thank you for the information and your hospitality, the Redeed said smiling. Yasaka was about to respond before the cries of a young girl reached their ears. Kunu-chan. Yasaka yelled as she ran out of the room, followed by the three devils who followed closely behind. The elder kitsune nearly ripped the doors leading out outside from its hinges, floating in the air. Before them were 5 fallen angels with 4 wings, each glaring down at them. Behind them was another one with 6 wings holding Kunu, with a small knife made of light near her neck. Let go of her. The priestess yelled, only to get a mad laugh from the angel. How about you tell us where that bastard Uzumaki is, eh? Tell us and maybe I'll let her go, the fallen angel said with a twisted smirk that disgusted Yasaka and the devils. How about you face me yourself, coward? Naruto's voice echoed in the courtyard as he appeared in a swirl of leaves in front of the group of fallen angels. 3 sets of eyes widened when the devils saw the man with 12 black wings sprouting from his back. It was rare for a seraph-level angel to appear like that, but what really shocked them was the massive amount of power he was releasing, and fact that he wasn't a known seraph or Azazel. Grafie glared coldly at Yasaka, who was too preoccupied to take notice. It really annoyed annoyed the silver-haired devil that the yokai had lied to her master's face in the middle of a peace talk. In her mind, it proved that Yasaka had a greater desire to protect her bonds with the fallen angel than forge one with them. Sirzechs didn't say anything but rather watched with slight interest. He never really expected the rumor of a new 12-winged fallen angel to be true. The fact that the most probable way of that happening was for one of the Sirzechs to fall made it extremely unlikely. The only other way as far as he knew was for one to climb the ranks until he reached that power, and that would have been noticed far before the rumors began. The only other possibility that came to his mind was a devil piece, but for a fallen angel. Naruto growled at the five as he formed a spear in his right hand. "I won't do that," the fallen angel holding Kunu said as he hid behind the prone form of the young kitsune. "You won't want to hurt your poor little friend," he said in an insulting tone. "Kill him," he ordered his minions who flew at the blonde. "Pathetic," Naruto whispered as he drove his spear into one of their throats. The gruesome sight caused another one to hesitate, giving Naruto the opportunity to slam a Rasengan into his chest. The devils looked on in awe as the fallen angel's attack ripped its way through its target's attack and grind its way into his body. The last two looked at one another before trying to escape. They had just seen two of their comrades killed, as if they were mere flies, and they had no desire to end their lives prematurely. This didn't stop Yasaka from going the small battle with her foxfire, which burned one of them into nothingness, while Naruto speared another one through the stomach. "Stand down." The six-winged angel yelled as he held the knife to Kuna's neck. A small cut was made when the blade pressed against her flesh. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw a drop of blood leaking from the girl's throat. "One more step, and it'll kill her," he yelled as he floated away from the two angered blondes. "You are the type of person I hate," Naruto said angrily. Another orange spear appeared in his hand. "It'll kill you," he said with his voice taking a slight demonic tone. As his eyes turned a dark tone of red, the voice sent shivers down Rias' spine as she watched the event. From the looks of things, the fallen angel seemed to be around her age, but at the same time he was far more powerful than her. She quickly thought about how he could help her with the situation she had found herself in. "Oh?" the six-winged fallen angel said, grinning, "And I guess you're fine with sacrificing this cutie?" he asked. Before he could even react, his head was sliced off by Naruto, who had turned his spear into a halberd. Naruto caught Kunu, who was released by the man's grip, and floated down in front of the devils. By that time his eyes had already returned to normal, and he now wore a nervous grin. "Hey, stay back, Rias-sama," Grafia yelled as she pushed the red-haired girl behind her. She didn't know what was going on at the moment, but she knew that the situation could quickly turn for the worst if they weren't careful. The fact that a powerful fallen angel was around without them now was bad. The fact that said angel had 12 wings only served to make it worse. "I'm not here to fight you devils," Naruto said before looking down to Kunu, who was crying into his chest. The blonde patted the young kitsune as he tried to comfort her. He felt terrible that she had to go through that because he was living with them. "It's okay, Kunu-chan," he said calmly. The red-haired man smiled at him and walked towards the two blondes. "Sirzechs is Lucifer, one of the four Satans. May I get your name?" he said kindly. Naruto narrowed his eyes on the man before deciding that he held no malicious intent towards him or the girl in his arms. There was no doubt that this was going to spread over the supernatural world, now that he had been discovered. Still, in his mind, saving Kunu was worth it. "Naruto Uzumaki," he replied as he set Kunu on the ground. Instead of running to her mother, she opted to hug his leg, as if his presence gave her a sense of safety. "I'm sorry that some of my acquaintances interrupted your meeting with Yasaka-chan," he said, bowing his head a bit in shame for what the other fallen angels had done. He barely could refer to most of them as friends, with the only ones he really trusted being the Azazel, Baraquil, and Calawerner. Not to say that they were all bad, but many were terrible. "It's fine," Sirzechs waved as he smiled back at the two female devils he's brought with him to the meeting. "Let me introduce you to my wonderful little sister Rias-tan and my queen and personal maid Grafia," the man said as he motioned to the two. Grafia bowed slightly, but he could feel her energy building, as if she was preparing to attack if it was necessary. The other girls seemed to be studying him. "How about we all take a break?" Yasaka recommended, seeing how tense everyone was after the attack. Both the blonde and red Satan nodded in agreement as Naruto walked up with Kunu at his side, while Grafia and Sirzechs walked back inside with Yasaka, who gave one final look at Naruto and Kunu before following the two devils with a smile. Rias just stood outside deep in thought at what she had just learned. It was hard to wrap her head around the fact that there was another fallen angel with 12 wings that not even her brother knew about, not to mention that he seemed to be around her age if not a bit older. While she didn't really like fallen angels in general, she wasn't one to generalize them all as evil. "He didn't look half bad either," she said before going back. But Naruto was giving Kunu a quick look over. He checked her for any injuries. He couldn't help but curse the fallen angels under his breath for forcing him to reveal himself to the devil leader. But at least he seemed to be a good man. Unlike most of the fallen angels, he held no hatred for race, since he was born as a human in a world where devils didn't exist. That guy was strong, Hess nowhere near as strong as Madara and Kagaya, but stronger than Azazel, that's for sure, Naruto thought to himself as he contemplated his next move. He knew that Azazel wanted to make peace with the devils, unlike most of their faction, and had met with the man several times over their long lifetimes, so attacking them was out of the question, not that he wanted to anyways. That woman was also strong in her own right, but chess leagues below that Sirzechs guy. That brought his mind to the last of the 3 devils he had met today. To call her beautiful was an insult to her in his mind. He near blushed at the thought of her long red hair. Damn, him turning into my dad, Naruto muttered, causing Kunu to look at him with a cute confused face. Noticing her gaze, Naruto smiled before patting her on the head. You all set, Kunu-chan. The reincarnation of Asura said. Thanks, Nai-chan, Kunu said to the 2 left to rejoin the others. It wasn't long before the 2 entered the room where the devils and Yasaka were waiting for them. Kasama. Kunu yelled as she ran to where her mother was sitting and gave her a hug. Are you sure you're okay, Kunu-chan? The elder kitsune asked her daughter, who nodded and sat down next to her. Naruto looked on happily the 2 before he took a seat in the spot Yasaka had set up for him when he returned. Now, I'm sure you 3 have a lot of questions, Naruto said, holding back a sigh as he was handed a cup of tea. But Yasaka, I will try to answer what I can. But I will not betray Azazel, just as I don't expect you to betray your kind, he said the last part sternly. I understand Uzumaki saw the leader of hell started before he was cut off by Naruto. Just Naruto is fine. I don't it when things are all formal and stuff, the blonde interrupted before drinking his tea. He could feel the annoyance rolling of the maid when interrupted her master, as if he didn't care about his title, and frankly he didn't. Sirzechs was strong, that he couldn't deny, but he was not on his level. I also have a few questions for you, but since this is your meeting I will let you go first, Naruto said to the Lucifer. It's rare to find a fallen angel who is as considerate of devils as you, Naruto, Sirzechs said, grinning. Many fallen angels would have just attacked them without even talking. To meet with one who didn't care if you were a devil was indeed very rare, Naruto matched Asada's grin. I can imagine, many of the members of my faction aren't the nicest people. Hell, even I barely trust anyone in it, Naruto said, laughing a bit, which Sirzechs joined in on. So if I may ask, Naruto, where did you come from? There hasn't been many seraph-level angel created since they were first created them, and I don't remember you during the war. It was extremely unlikely that one of the younger angels had risen up the ranks so quickly, when many of those who had fought during the war hadn't achieved that level. Naruto frowned, but knew lying could only cause more problems. The man was the leader of an entire race. No doubt he knew many of the strongest in each of the 3 factions by name. The fact that he looked so young and was never once seen before only made the situation worse for him. Simply put, I was a human who was turned into a fallen angel, Naruto said to Sirzechs, who looked a bit troubled by the news. The ability to reincarnate a human into their faction was something that so far only the devils had, and it must be a large pill to swallow, knowing that someone else has something like it. Don't worry about it, however. Azazel said that he doesn't have the resources to recreate the process that made me into what I am now. Naruto tried to reassure them. I see, Sirzechs responded. He didn't know if he could completely trust the man in front of him, but he knew Azazel well enough to know that if he trusted the Uzumaki, then he was at least worth his word. Sirzechs-sama, you should take this matter more seriously. Grafia chastised her king for being so laid back about such a serious development. Several of the fallen angels have attacked us in the past. Even if Azazel can't replicate it, what if another learns how and builds a force strong enough to attack the underworld? She said to her king, hoping that he would see how serious the situation was. If that were to happen, then I would eliminate them, Naruto said, calmly, getting the attention of the 2. Azazel has already said that none of the members of the Grigori are to attack members of the devil or angel or any faction. Any who break this rule are traitors, which is where I come in, Naruto said as he stood up and bowed. I am Naruto Uzumaki, Warden of the Grigori, Naruto said, giving his given title. He had earned it shortly after he first wiped out a group who were planning on invading the home of a family of devils who had settled on Earth. I see, that is why those fallen angels were after you, Rias finally spoke up. The girl smiled at the blonde kindly. I haven't introduced myself, but as you may have heard, I am Rias Grigori. I'm assuming that they were after you because you hunted and killed some of their friends, she concluded, getting a nod from the blonde. Correct, Naruto responded. Many of my kind hold a strong hatred towards me, since I am the one who keeps them in line, the blonde said with a heavy sigh at the thought of the other fallen angels. Then why don't you leave them? Rias asked the blonde, who looked at her with a small glare. I mean, if they hate you, then why not just leave? She asked him. Sirzechs looked over at his sister, knowing where she was going, and he didn't like it. I offer you a place in my peerage as my rook, she offered at the blonde, who looked at her with sweat drop. Do you want me to abandon my faction just to become your servant? Naruto said slowly before chuckling, trying to gain a powerful ally by playing to his weakness. I got to say, you're as intelligent as you are beautiful, Naruto said, complimenting her. While he often did think about leaving the Grigori, he didn't want to leave the wild group unchecked, since as genius as Azazel was, he wasn't enough to keep everyone in line. So what do you say? she asked as she held you her rook piece. How about this, Naruto said as he stood up and offered her a friendly smile. You try to land a single hit on me in a spar. If you manage to do that I will join you, however if you lose. Naruto paused as he gained a dark look which would fit well on a fallen angel. I'll kill you where you stand, he said menacingly. Rias instantly backed down, while she was confident in her skills. She didn't think that she could take on a seraph, no, she knew she couldn't stand a chance. Graphia's eyes narrowed on the two of them as she started to channel her magic to strike down the blonde should he decided to attack them. Naruto started to chuckle a bit at the mortified face Rias was making at the thought of having to fight him. Relax, I have no intention of killing you, rat, I was just joking, Naruto said, causing Sirzechs to smile at the blonde's good nature. However, I will be your friend, the Uzumaki continued with a charismatic grin. I guess I'll take what I can take in, she said to the blonde, even if she was a bit annoyed at the fact that he had turned down her offer. Sirzechs let out a breath of relief, since he knew that even if the blonde had agreed his dear little sister wouldn't have been able to turn him given how powerful he was. It would have taken all her pieces and then some to reincarnate the fallen angel into a devil, and that would have upset her more than him refusing. I sense that you are disappointed, Naruto said, surprising them a bit. I can sense a large amount of negativity coming from you. You are angry and feel a bit hopeless, he said, surprising her even further. He couldn't help but already feel bad for the girl, just based on how much darker her emotions got when he refused to join her group. It was almost as if he was been a chance for her to get out of something. It's personal, she said, scowling a bit at him. Naruto frowned, but didn't regret his actions. If anything, he wanted to know more about what was troubling her. He could see that the older Redeed had the look of regret on his face when she said that. The leader of the devil faction had also gained a gloomy feel to him compared to his normal personality. If you need help, just ask, Naruto said with a wave of his hand before another thought entered his head. Besides, you already agreed to be my friend, Naruto told her as he extended his hand to her. How about it? I help you and in return you become my friend, you know, he offered her. Rias bit her lower lip as she considered Naruto's offer. Well, part of her wanted to be weary of the blonde, simply because he was a fallen angel, and he wasn't part of her group. Another part of her wanted to take whatever risk needed to get herself out of her situation. Sirzechs seemed oddly calm at this point as he waited to see what his sister would do. While he wanted to shelter her from danger, she needed to make her own choice, and if they ever ended up negatively then he would step in. But if the blonde was anything like Azazel, he was sure everything would end up fine. I have to break that contract. Her mind affirmed as she grasped Naruto's hand. You got yourself a deal, Naruto Uzumaki, Rias said to the blonde, who nodded and shook her hand. Sirzechs smiled at the friendly faces the two had on as they solidified their deal. Naruto let go of her hand as he leaned back in his chair. So Rias, tell me what you need me to help you with, Naruto regusted. Break my marriage contract with Riser Phoenix, she told him. She really didn't want to rely on someone else, but with less than a few months before it would be completed, she was running out of options and her peerage wasn't anywhere near strong enough to take on his full group plus him. She was already starting to get desperate. Then you have my word, Naruto said as he folded his arms. I'll break your contract with this Riser guy, and I never break my word, that is my way, Naruto said, getting nodded for both the deeds. But the maid's glare never left him. Hey Yasaka-chan, since my cover has been blown, I'm going to check back with Azazel. He'll be back in a few days, okay? Naruto said as he stood up and vanished in a swirl of leaves. Sirzechs-sama, should we really be trusting a fallen angel? Graphius scolded the Lucifer, who put his hands up in defense. He could be trying to get close to Rias-sama to get to you. Trust me when I say Naruto-kun can be trusted, Yasaka said, glaring at the maid for accusing her friend of scheming to attack the devil faction. After spending so much time with him, she knew that the only thing Naruto wanted was to bring peace to the world and the factions. Azazel has wanted nothing but peace since the war. If he trusted Naruto to be so close to the Yokai leader and her child, then he can be trusted to a degree. Besides, this was Rias-tan's choice, he said, smiling at the Redeed, who still seemed unsure of her choice. But in the end, as long as she got out of her predicament, then she was fine. Naruto appeared outside of Kyoto. Come out, Kuroka-chan, Naruto said as he saw Kuroka jump down from a tree and land next to him. Hey there, kitty, Naruto said as he rubbed the top of head, causing her to purr and lean into him. So where have you been off to? I have barely seen you in the last few months, Naruto asked the catgirl, who smirked and raised her mouth next to his ear. Secret, she whispered, causing Naruto to almost all over and faceplant. Kuroka giggled a bit at Naruto's expression as she walked with him away from the city. Sorry Naruto-kun, but I can't tell you just yet. Maybe if you give me those babies like I want, then I'll tell you, Naya. She teased him, only to get a light slap to the back of the head. You're so mean, Naya, she said, rubbing the back of her head. I'm not mean, you're just a horny pussy, the Uzumaki teased her. Kuroka had grabbed onto his arm and placed it between her great mounds. Sometimes it was hard for him to contain his fallen angel side, which had more than a growing amount of lust. But I have things I have to do at the moment, Naruto said to the woman who hung off his arm. You're right, she said, licking his cheek with her rough cat-like tongue. I am a very horny pussy, she teased him back. She really wished she had spent more time with her blonde friend over the last few months since he started hiding in Kyoto. She had been one of the few people who he told, and while she didn't tell anyone, she always kicked herself for not capitalizing on the time when Naruto was isolated from most of the world. Maybe if she had, they may have been a step closer to repopulating her species. In a few months he'll enter heat, she reminded herself as she walked with the blonde. Hey Kuroka-chan, your sister is a part of Rias Grimory's peerage, right? Naruto asked the Nekomata, who raised an eyebrow at the sudden question, but nodded anyways to answer his question. I can sense you're confused, he said, slightly amused. She was at Yasaka-chan's house with her brother Sirzechs Lucifer and some grey-haired maid. She seems nice, even if she has some baggage, Naruto said. Oh, she has some baggage, I would say, Kuroka said, not really talking about Rias' problem with her fiancé, but rather her body, more specifically her boobs. Anyways, I've kept an eye on little Shirin-chan, and I can't complain, the catgirl said to Naruto, who nodded. From the few times they had talked about her sister, Naruto could tell she felt bad for what she did, but both of them knew it needed to be done. Don't worry, after I finish this job for Rias, I'll see if I can convince her brother to clear your name, Naruto said before they saw someone land in front of them. The young man had dark silver hair and ice blue eyes. He was wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. He also wore burgundy jeans with a chain drooping down over them, and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf, and black shoes with black buckles. Out of his back were 8 devil-like wings. Vali, this is an unexpected surprise, Naruto said, frowning. Naruto and Vali had met for the first time soon after Naruto had recovered enough to have a spar with Azazel. To say that their meeting went bad was an understatement. The blonde barely got a word out before Vali demanded a battle. In short terms, the kid was a battle maniac. No matter how many times he refused, the silver-haired half-devil persisted. His attitude didn't earn him any points in his book either. To a degree, he was like a young Sasuke before they had put their differences aside. Uzumaki, Vali said, narrowing his eyes on the blonde. Unfortunately for Naruto, he had taken Naruto's refusal to battle him as an insult to his battle prowess. Azazel had been more than clear when he said that Naruto had bested him in battle and would be more than capable of beating him. None of that mattered to him. He wanted to have a fight with a 12-winged fallen angel who had bested their mentor, even if he died in the battle. Did Azazel send you? Naruto asked, only for Vali to charge at him. The hell? The blonde yelled as he picked up Kuroka in his arms and jumped out of the way. Vali's fist crashed into the ground, making a decent-sized crater. Vali, what are you doing? Naruto demanded as he let his wings out. A powerful barrier formed around the area they were in, dyeing the sky a dark purple. I came here on my own, Vali said as his body was covered in white dragon-like armor. I'm not holding back, he yelled as he charged at Naruto, who reacted at the last second by spinning out of the way of the attack and landing on the ground. Kuroka jumped out of his arms as they watched Vali flying over the, what are you waiting for? Battle me, Vali yelled at them. Naruto's eyes narrowed on the teen as he created a spear of light in his right hand. You asked for it, Vali, Naruto yelled as he threw the weapon of light at Vali. The armored teen moved out of the way before going down at him. Azazel said he divided his opponent power by touching them in his base 4, Naruto thought as he jumped away from Vali. Naruto moved far faster than Vali could see and appeared next to him. His kick nearly shattered the mail over Vali's left arm. The blonde frowned as he felt his power get cut in half by the sacred gear's effects. I can't keep hitting him with physical attacks, the blonde thought while Vali recovered from the attack. But power? Vali grunted as he tried to control the power he had drained from Naruto. Just that half had caused his wings to start releasing the excess energy. It exceeded all expectations he had for his opponent. I won't lose to you, Vali yelled as he charged at Naruto far faster than before. Naruto flipped back and aimed his mech arm at Vali. Light beam. The Uzumaki yelled as he fired a beam of light at Vali, who used his power to divide the energy in the attack until there was too little power to even be noticed. Naruto growled a bit before vanishing from Vali's sight. The armored teen turned in time to catch Naruto's fist. Divide, Vali thought as he attempted to drain more of Naruto's power, only to find himself unable to. What? Naruto smirked as a compartment on his arm opened, revealing a second mini-missile. Vali was blown back by the sudden attack, while Naruto corrected himself. That's enough, Vali. Their battle was interrupted by Azazel, who had arrived shortly after the battle had begun. The 3 inside the barrier looked at the leader of the Grigori, who was scowling at the 2 combatants. I thought I told you that you were not to fight with Naruto unless both him and I allowed you to spar, he said before his face took a sympathetic look. I don't want either of you to die, he muttered as he landed on the ground. It was then that he noticed Kuroka. Damn, I won't mind doing that, he thought before looking at Vali. Return to the base, he said, grinning madly. I have a new training program to punish you with. Vali paled a bit before releasing the barrier and flying away from the other 3 with a scowl on his face. Next time I will win, he thought to himself. Naruto could tell that this encounter would only serve to cause more problems between him and Vali. Naruto sighed as he retracted his wings back into his body and leaned against a tree. Even if Vali wasn't as strong as him and his current form having half his power stolen was still tiring. Good timing. Azazel I needed to taunt Naruto started before he was cut off by the elder man. No time for that now Naruto-kun, Azazel said as he moved to face Naruto, who was using his chakra to refill his reserves that had been taken by Vali. It seems that you were right, he said scowling, handing him a folder. Inside Naruto found pictures of an average-looking Japanese boy holding hands with a girl he knew far too well. Raynor, Naruto growled as he looked at the picture of the smiling girl. Even if it was just a picture he could see that she was faking it. Why didn't Raynor report this earlier? He asked, fearing a bit for the woman. While she was far from innocent, she was far more trustworthy and loyal than Raynor. Raynor likely had her under watch, consider she was the only person we added to the team, Azazel said frowning. Naruto himself was worried about the blue-haired woman who he had befriended. Flashback. Naruto was walking through one of the Grigori bases. He was taking a short break from training with Azazel to get used to his new powers. Instantly he found himself disgusted by some of the other faction members. Many talked about crimes as if they were nothing but pastimes. The men bragged about how many virginities they took while the women how many hearts they broke. Many of their bodies were deformed due to sinning, some gaining a slight demonic look. He heard someone mutter, looks like the warden is here. You look new around here, Naruto heard a woman say who was walking towards him. She was a tall and buxom woman with long navy blue hair that obscured her right eye, and brown attire consisted of a violet trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest, giving view to her very large breasts and cleavage. Naruto smiled and nodded. So far she had been the first of the fallen angels besides Azazel or Baraquil to greet him. Yeah, this is my first time here. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said, extending his hand towards the woman. He couldn't deny that she was one of the best-looking women he had seen in both his and this world. He remembered that Azazel had told him that female fallen angels tend to gain extremely seductive bodies after they fell. The woman smiled and took his hand. My name is Raynor, she introduced herself to him as they shook hands. The female fallen angel couldn't help but look over his body and licking her lips a bit. So how did you fall? She asked him, getting the attention of some of the other fallen angels. I don't really know, he said, getting sweat drops from those who believed his lie. Many of the men glared at him for gaining the attention of the Raynor, and the fact that he was getting his reputation of killing or injuring fallen angels who went against Azazel. His empathy sense was going crazy from the negative feeling he was getting from nearly everyone in the room minus the woman in front of him. Sure, she had the same taint that nearly all fallen angels had, but she wasn't radiating darkness like the rest. Well, it was nice you meet you, Raynor-san, but I think I may have to leave, Naruto said, looking over at the others. The busty fallen angel watched as the blonde walked out of the room. A small point reached her lips when he left. She silently glared at the other before following him out of the building. The sight she was greeted by was a shock to say the least. Before her was the same blonde as before, but with 6 sets of wings and 10 other fallen angels bleeding on the ground around him. His gaze turned onto her. She couldn't help but shiver a bit at the cold glare he was giving her before it softened a bit. Azazel was right, he said as he kicked one of the downed fallen angel. Trash, he said. The light blush crept onto her face at the display. Naruto looked at her one last time, before sending a small hand wave to her, before flying away faster than she could see. As he flew away, Naruto smiled at finally another fallen angel who wasn't so malicious. Flashback end. Naruto, I want you go and make sure Raynor doesn't do anything stupid in the devil's territory. If you need to. Azazel stopped a bit as let out a sigh. Giving the blonde the kill order was never easy for him. He considered the Grigori as family to an extent, but he needed to protect the peace the factions had. For now, kill her. Naruto nodded and prepared to move, only for Kuroka to jump into his arms. You're not getting rid of me yet, Naya, she said to the blonde, who nodded, vanished in a burst of speed. Kuroka snuggled into Naruto's chest as he flew through the air with her in his arms. The fallen angel blushed as she felt the 2 soft mounds of flesh pressing against his chest. It didn't help that he could feel her warm breath on his skin. Had he been a lesser man, he may have given in to his urges and taken her, but he was a hardened shinobi, and one of the most powerful beings in the world according to Azazel. It had been around 3 days since Azazel had told him to go check on Raynor, since he needed time to organize himself for a possible extent trip. Naruto-kun, Kuroka moaned as she rubbed his abs through his shirt. Bored Naya, she complained to him. Naruto rolled his eyes as he tried to ignore the beauty in his arms at the moment. They were on their way to Kuo Academy, but Naruto had decided to take his time flying there, since they weren't in much of a hurry. Then why don't you fly yourself then? Naruto asked a bit annoyed since he knew that the Catwoman had wings herself, since she had been reincarnated as a devil in the past. He instantly noticed the gloomy aura that filled Kuroka and regretted snapping at her like. Naruto felt bad since he remembered that she had never wanted to become a devil in the first place. "I'm sorry, Kuroka," Naruto whispered to her. The black-haired girl smiled softly, but her eyes still held some sadness in them. The two flew in silence for a few minutes before Kuroka finally spoke. "Why did you agree to help me populate my species?" She asked the blonde, who looked down at her with a bit of surprise. Since the day they met, she had been trying to get into his pants to help her species. "Do I need a reason? If I fall in love with you, then of course I would want to have kids with you, my little kitty," Naruto said, teasing her a bit. Kuroka blushed at the nickname. "Besides, it's not the first time I agreed to something like that, except this time I may go through with it," the blonde added, getting a confused look from the former Nekomata. Not that she really cared about sharing, since that was mostly a human concept. "How about after we land we go on a date, Naya?" Kuroka suggested to him. She wanted to get him to agree to have with her before her heat period started, or else she would have to wait until the next one. Naruto thought about it for a few seconds before he gave her his answer. "Sure, why not, but first I have to make sure that Raynor hasn't done anything stupid," he responded. Over the time he had been hiding, Kuroka had declared herself his girlfriend, regardless of how many times he had shot down the notion. After all, she was one of the few people he would spend time over the last few months, even if she disappeared for weeks at a time. Though he did feel some tension between her and Yasaka for some reason. He could remember the time she had snuck into his bed some time before the morning. Flashback. It had been a normal morning for him as the kitsune who he was staying with opened the door to his room to wake him up like she always did for him, or rather he had thought it had been a normal morning until he felt wave of dread wash over his room. "Yasaka-chan, what's wrong?" Naruto asked the mother, who glared at the spot next to him. The fallen angel's jaw dropped as he saw Kuroka sleeping next to him completely naked. She was blushing heavily as she spoke a bit in her sleep. "Naruto-kun, punish this pussy Naya," she said, earning a blush from not only him, but the blonde kitsune as well, due to the dual meaning of her words, and neither of them were innocent in any way. "Care to explain, Naruto-san?" Yasaka said coldly with an odd smile that looked a bit too sweet for his liking. It almost reminded him of how the Mizukage would act when her guard out would bring up her age, and the fact that she never married despite her growing age. Naruto for once couldn't think of anything to say in return. Kuroka hadn't been there when he had first gone to sleep. Of course Yasaka knew who Kuroka was due to her reputation as one of the most dangerous criminals from the underworld. "Keep it quiet, Naya." Kuroka muttered, annoyed from the talkings. The beauty sat up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes before she looked up at an annoyed Yasaka, who was flashed by the younger woman's larger breasts. "You are trespassing in my house," Yasaka responded, a bit annoyed that her guest had been sleeping with a woman while under her roof. It was a holy sight for some people, for crying out loud. "I just missed my Naruto-kun," Kuroka said, grabbing onto Naruto's arm with a pout. This wasn't the first time she had snuck into his bed, but it was the first time she had done so completely naked and with Yasaka in the room. "You can't blame me for wanting to be with my boyfriend," she said to the fox Yakai. "BBB boyfriend," Yasaka said in shock before Naruto could respond. "I'm not your boyfriend." The blonde male yelled back at her, only for her to kiss him on the cheek. It had only been 2 months since he had started staying with Yasaka and her daughter, and he didn't want to end up homeless due to a misunderstanding. "But we went on a date before and you agreed to another one," Kuroka said, smirking at him. Naruto paled a bit as she continued to speak. "I think that makes me your girlfriend, doesn't it, Naya?" she said to him, leaving him looking like a fish out of water. "I'm afraid you may have misunderstood, stray cat," Yasaka said as she walked towards the bed. "Oh, I get it, you have the hots for him, Naya." Kuroka teased the kitsune, who stopped her advance and took a step back. Naruto stayed silent the entire time, since from experience with Ino and Sakura, interfering would only result in their combined wrath going at him. "If it means anything, I'm okay with sharing, Naya," she told Yasaka with a wide grinning. "The nerve," Yasaka yelled out before she stormed out of the room, trying to hide the massive blush that was covering her face. Flashback end. He couldn't help but sweat drop how that interaction had gone. Yasaka rarely spoke to him for a week after that, but Kunu had managed to convince her to let him explain the situation to her. Things were still rough for a bit with the Yakai leader, but eventually they returned to their old relationship. "We're almost there," Naruto said as they saw the city coming into view. It always impressed Naruto how big some places were in this world, but at the same time, it made him sad how much the world was suffering because of this. It just made his respect for Kuroka and other senjutsu users that much higher. Sure, for someone like him who had conquered his hatred it wasn't much, but to people who still had some darkness in their hearts or hadn't trained properly it was extremely difficult. "I can't wait to see Shirin-chan, Naya," Kuroka said with a wide grin on her face as Naruto landed on one of the many buildings. It only took him seconds to draw in enough nature energy to enter his base sage mode. Kuroka looked at Naruto, who was gazing over the large city with his now toad-like eyes. It always amazed her how proficient the blonde was with the power that very few could use. "See anything?" she asked the blonde who nodded. Raynor broke her orders, Naruto said with a small growl. He was watching Raynor walking hand in hand with a teenage boy who seemed to possess a very powerful sacred gear, the boosted gear. Now I see why Azazel took interest in that boy, Naruto thought as he watched the two from afar. He could sense the great power hidden inside of the boy, but at the same time he felt two other powers. Looks like Rias has returned to the city, Naruto added as he felt her energy in the school. So what are we gonna do? Kuroka asked him, poking her head over his shoulder. For now we watch and trust that the devils can control their own territory. If things go wrong, then well step in, Naruto said, holding back the urge to simply go down and pull Raynor away. He could feel the other fallen angels in the group resting in the abandoned church they had occupied. One however was coming straight towards them. Lord Naruto, Raynor said politely as she landed in front of him. Naruto smiled when the loyal fallen angel spoke to him. She had set herself apart from the other members of their small faction, with her dedication to both him and Azazel. It was a quality many lacked unfortunately. It wasn't uncommon for them to disobey an order and kill humans and other faction members. It's been too long, Kala, Naruto said, hugging her. The woman blushed deeply at his embrace, but returned it nonetheless. Naruto let go of her and gave her some space. I'm sorry for not contacting you for so long, but I was preoccupied, the blonde said, earning a smirk from the tall woman. Oh, I can see that, she said, looking over at Kuroka who was watching on with interest. I see you bagged yourself a white-cat girl, my lord. I gotta say I'm a bit jealous, she said, looking at Kuroka's chest for a second, but took satisfaction in the fact that she was still taller than her. Naruto rolled his eyes at her before growing serious. As much as I want to catch up, I need to know exactly what Raynor has been doing with the boy. Azazel told me a bit, but due to my situation, I wasn't able to learn much about him, the blue-eyed teen said to the woman who nodded and grew serious as well. There was a time for playing and a time for work. This was one of the things she took to heart after she started to work with the blonde. That's a pervert, Raynor said, plainly causing both Naruto and Kuroka to sweat drop at the notion. A pervert with a weapon that could defeat even the gods. It was almost terrifying what could happen if he ever went insane and used his power for ignoble purposes. However, he has a good heart from what I've seen and treasures his family and friends. Originally he joined Kuo Academy due to the fact that he thought he could obtain a harem due to the lower male to female ratio. It hasn't worked as far as we can tell, Raynor told Naruto who nodded. The boy sounded a bit like a young Jiraiya, only much weaker at the moment. It is because of this that Raynor was able to manipulate him. Due to his lack in ability to gain a girlfriend, Raynor pretended to be a girl who was attracted to him, she added to her information. So basically the boy wants to fuck a girl so badly he was willing to date a girl he never met before and knew nothing about, yet she somehow knew enough about him to fall for him, Naruto said, a bit annoyed. Why was he doomed to forever be surrounded by pervert? If it wasn't for the fact that he was sure he could beat some of the gods, he would have thought a higher power was laying with him. Other than that, the Grigori girl's peerage has been watching over him from the shadows. I suspect that she is wait for Raynor to finish him off so that she can reincarnate him into a devil, Raynor told him. Naruto narrowed his eyes a bit at the notion of waiting for someone to die just to make them a servant for you. It was one of the few problems he had with the devil faction. He understood their reason for doing so due to the wars they had fought. Truth be told, he had a problem with all three factions including his own. Heaven had too many strict rules. The devils had their peerage system which supported a form of slavery if the king wasn't just, and his faction was made of sinners for the most part. So Rias is also tangled up in this, Naruto muttered while rubbing his chin, trying to think of a real strategy on how to handle the problem. One thing he would need to do is get approval from the people who were in control of the area. He could just feel the headache coming. Anything else? Naruto asked, not wanting any more surprises. Yes, Raynor nodded. Raynor has also tricked a former nun from the Catholic Church who was labeled a witch after she healed a devil. She has a powerful healing sacred gear that is able to heal any race. Raynor wants to steal it from her to enhance her power, she told the blonde who frowned. No doubt that a sacred gear like that would give her a massive advantage, but he cold let an innocent girl die. Kuroka, Raynor, go to the base that Azazel provided for us. I have something that I have to do, Naruto said to the two women who nodded, showing him that they understood. The blonde's 12 wings sprouted out of his back before he flew towards the school. The Occult Research Club. Steam escaped from the shower in the room of Rias, cleaned herself. It was an attempt to relax as she tried to figure out what to do. She had already started planning to get one of the perverted trio into her peerage due to his sacred gear, but she still had some hope that the blonde fallen angel kept his word and dealt with Riser for him. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like a lie. After all, why would a fallen angel want to get involved in devil politics? After all, that was all her marriage was. Who are you? She heard one of her peerage members yell from the main room. She quickly turned the shower off and wrapped herself in pink towel, leaving her cleavage exposed, but covering up most of her modesty. Running out of the shower, she saw the same blonde that had plagued her mind for the last few days, holding her knight sword back with a single finger while crouching on the open window. Naruto looked up and noticed Rias standing there in a towel, a fact that he tried to ignore. Rias-chan. he said cheerfully with a small wave. Rias waved back awkwardly at how he acted so casually while being attacked by a devil. The blonde knight looked back at his king, who signaled him to stop his attack. I got to say your knight is pretty fast, Naruto commented as he stepped into the room. He had to admit that the place looked pretty nice from the inside. Besides him there were 3 others in the room. One was of course Rias, who had ran out of the shower. The other was the blonde pretty boy who had attacked him when he appeared. The last was a very short white-haired girl, who he instantly recognized as Kuroka's younger sister, due to their similar energy. Naruto-san, what are you doing here? The busty Redeed asked the blonde who sat down next to the white-haired girl, who gave him a blank gaze before going back to her treats. Naruto looked down at the girl who was a bit tense with him near her. He could even see her nose twitching a bit. He didn't doubt that she could smell Kuroka's scent on him. Well, I was sent here by Azazel to take care of Raynor if she overstepped her boundaries, Naruto said to her. The eyes of the 2 other peerage members who didn't know his affiliation with the Grigori. So it's only right that I ask for permission to move freely within your family's land to prevent any accidental disputes, Naruto stated, getting a nod from the president of the club. Rias didn't need to think about it. She knew that if she said yes, then her plan for recruiting Issei would be ruined by the blonde who would take care of Raynor by the end of the night. I'm sorry, but I have the situation under control, the Redeed responded, earning a small glare from the blonde. Rias was a bit scared that he would turn on her for refusing him, but sighed in relief when he backed away. Okay then, but if I see that you're over your head then I'll step in, Naruto said before looking down at Kaneko, who was staring at him with a cross between a glare and a stoic expression. He had to admit that she looked pretty cute. Can I help you, Nico-chan? Naruto asked, getting a full glare from the girl. You can use Senjutsu, she said calmly, but he could hear the traces of hatred in her voice. When she said the name of his technique, Naruto frowned on the inside, seeing the bad blood the younger sister had with Kuroka and Senjutsu. No doubt she still hated Senjutsu for, according to the devils, making her sister inane. Rias turned to Naruto looking for answers from him. She knew who her rook was talking about, and as the sister of the strongest Satan she felt some right to know. So even when you can't use it, you can sense me? Naruto said, a bit surprised. He knew that Kuroka could, but he attributed it to being because she herself knew Senjutsu. Rias looked at him with a bit of suspicion. It was commonly thought that Senjutsu was exclusive to yakai and select humans. To know that a powerful fallen angel could use it, too, was a bit unsettling. She only hoped her deal with him didn't fall apart. Yes, I am a Senjutsu user. You should use it, Kaneko said, glaring at the blonde. The memories of her sister were still fresh in her mind. How she had almost lost her life because of it, and how she had ended up not as Shirin, but as Kaneko, as a member of Rias peerage. Naruto laughed a bit as he drew in nature energy, but instead of a feeling of dread, Rias, Kaneko, and Kiba felt a wave of serenity wash over them. It was as if the world around them was now at peace. Kaneko's eyes widened at the warm feeling. It was like a warm blanket was wrapped around her. Senjutsu is a very powerful ability. It can give you near unimaginable strength once you master it. My brand of Senjutsu is far different from anything your sister knows and has many strengths hers lacks, the blonde said before stopped drawing in energy. How do you keep so calm though? Rias asked the fallen angel. Senjutsu, according to what I have read, causes you to become drunk in power due to the malice of the world. This is why Kuroka killed her king, the beautiful Redeed said, getting a small smirk from the blonde. Naruto stood up and walked towards the window and looked out at the campus he was currently in. Humans, devils, fallen angels, and even angels. Every single race in this world has left a huge mark on this planet. The constant war and destruction can tainted the very energy that nature creates, Naruto said, letting that sink in for the 3 devils. It was then that he had an idea. Rias-chan, I want to have a quick battle with your peerage. Considering how much time I may have to spend in your area, I think it's best if they at least know a bit about me, and to judge how strong you are, Naruto suggested. Rias frowned but gave the idea a thought. She knew that her entire peerage was so match against the blonde in front of her. Her brother had gone into great detail that the fallen angel was more powerful than even himself. Anybody who was stronger than the strongest Satan was something she didn't want to mess with really, but at the same time he could help her train her friends. One thought that crossed her mind was Naruto possibly teaching her rook Kaneko how to use Senjutsu. I accept on one condition, Rias said, getting the attention of her 2 peers. Naruto just waited for her answer when he saw her mind starting to work. I will accept if you help train my peerage. The blonde thought about it. He was already seeing how Rias operated. She got what she wanted and to an extent would use underhanded methods to achieve her goals. His mind went to her other deal with him. He had a clear advantage over Riser due to his power over light and his speed. Okay, Naruto said as he stepped back up on the window. Meet me in the forest about 4 miles out of the city, he said before jumping down to the ground and walking away as if nothing had happened. Grigori base. Vali was on the ground panting heavily. His entire body was covered in bruises caused by none other than Azazel, who stood in front of him with his arms crossed and a stern look on his face. This had been Vali's punishment of attacking Naruto, even after he had been ordered not to. Stand up, Vali. You want to fight Naruto, but you can't even beat me. Azazel said, trying to drive it into his adopted son's head that he would lose. Vali stood up even when his body tried to force him back down. He couldn't help but glare at the governor of the Grigori. "I will beat him," he said as he spat out a glob of blood onto the floor. The entire time the two had been sparring, he wasn't allowed to use his sacred gear even once. "Oh?" Azazel said with a raised eyebrow, "and how will you do that?" "He is stronger than even me physically and he is faster. He has unlimited stamina and can destroy mountains as he pleases. And before you said the divine dividing, I'll warn you now," Azazel said as his face softened a bit. "If you ever use your sacred gear while Naruto is at full power or his eyes are orange, you will die," the fallen angel said. Alice's eyes widened at what he had just heard. He had never thought that he could die from using his sacred gear on someone else. If anything, he always believed that it would make him stronger in the end. "How?" he asked. "Naruto can use a special kind of senjutsu," Azazel admitted to Vali, who remained silent. That alone could bring up concerns for him. The hatred and the energy combined with his sacred gear could accidentally cause him to lose control. However, unlike normal senjutsu, if you can't control it properly, he said, getting up close to Vali, "You'll be turned into a toad and then to stone." He said, remembering one of the stories Naruto told him about his world, how one of his enemies tried draining his energy only to be tricked into petrifying himself. What Azazel didn't know, however, was that he had only strengthened Vali's desire to fight against a blonde to prove that he was the strongest between the two. But Naruto, Kuroka, Naruto yelled out as he entered the house he had been given by Azazel. Naruto sighed when he didn't get a response. He assumed that she had gone out and walked towards his room in the house. He had to admit Azazel had outdone himself with the house. It was more of a mansion than a house. It was styled in an Elizabethan style with dark blue furniture and oak floors. "I see you've arrived," Naruto heard a feminine yet cold and emotionless voice. Naruto turned his head to see a young girl with gray eyes and long black hair that reached her hips. She was wearing a black and purple gothic Latita dress. "Your existence interests me. I want you to join my group to help me rid my home of a pest. In return, I will grant you whatever you desire," the girl said to the blonde rather bluntly. "Please get out of my house," Naruto deadpanned, knowing exactly who this girl was. Azazel had given him a run-through of all the most powerful beings in the world. Going by his description, he recognized her as none other than the infinite dragon Ophis. He had gotten from one of the fallen angels that had deserted them for the so-called Cows Brigade that she was also the leader of that group. "I refuse to leave until you join me," she persisted, causing Naruto to sigh. He should have known that sooner or later he would draw on the attention of the so-called strongest existence. The only thing he feared more would be what would happen when he would have to confront heaven. "I am not betraying Azazel," Naruto said firmly as he summoned a spear of light in his right hand. Ophis narrowed her eyes a bit on Naruto, who had already prepared himself for an incoming attack. He already knew that if he had to fight against this dragon, he couldn't afford to hold back unlike he did with Azazel. He could already feel the power she was holding back inside her small body. It easily rivaled Kagaya in size but not in potency. "You are a brave idiot," Ophis said, sounding honest. Naruto nearly sweat-dropped, but couldn't really deny it. Only a handful of beings would openly threaten the dragon god, but at least he knew. "I repeat my offer, join me and I'll give you whatever you desire," she said to the blonde. "Take me back home," Naruto said to her. "I'll join you if you can prove to me that you can send me back to my world after I help you. That is the only thing that I want," Naruto told the Ouroboros dragon, who looked down for a second. "That is beyond my power," Ophis said with a small frown on her face. Well, she had an almost inconceivable amount of power and abilities at her disposal. The kind of thing the blonde fallen angel was asking for was something which she couldn't do, or at least didn't know if she could. Naruto laughed a bit at his small victory. "Regardless, you will join me on my quest to rid my home of a pest that is disturbing my silence," she pressed. "If you can call whatever you need to get rid of a pest, then it must not be that powerful compared to you. I doubt you would need my power to face your pest with all the people you already have," Naruto said with a bite in his tone. The amount of Grigori members he had to track down and often terminate was a bit overwhelming at times. It was one of the chief reasons why their faction was rapidly shrinking now, along with conflict with other factions. They betrayed their group for her in search of the reward she promised them. Ophis stayed silent for a second before she giving her response. "A battle between me and the intruder would last too long, which is why I need a force behind me to ensure his defeat," the dragon god said coldly. Naruto thought about it for a bit and came to the conclusion that she had a point. It was almost like Asura and Indra's battle back in his world. Both died in their battle due to how even they were power-wise. "Either way, it's not my problem," Naruto said, sounding irritated by the fact that the god refused to leave him alone. "I have enough to deal with as it is. I don't need your problems on my shoulders as well," Naruto told her with a glare. Ophis looked at the door slightly before locking eyes with Naruto. "You interest me. I must attend to other matters for now. I will observe you on a later date," Ophis said to him before standing up from her spot and walking out the door. Naruto just watched her leave and sensed her energy vanish. "Well, that happened," Naruto said before Kuroka bursted through the door looking very worried but seemed to calm down when she saw him. "What's wrong, Kuroka?" Naruto asked despite the fact that she had calmed down. To see her this frazzled wasn't a common thing for him. It's nothing, she said, dismissing his concern for her. Naruto just nodded, not wanting to get himself into another problem after just dealing with the dragon god. Heaven, Gabriel. An angel with long blonde hair and 12 golden wings yelled out. He had green eyes and a golden halo over his head. I have a task for you. And what to buy? Naruto must as he looked over the options he had at a sweet shop. Looking over his shoulder, he saw Raynor and Issei talking and seemingly having a good time with one another. Originally he was spying on them, but after a while, hours had passed and his hunger had grown. Luckily they had decided to come to this shop, giving him the chance to buy something under the cover as a customer. He had decided to transform himself into the image of his best friend Sasuke Uchiha from his home dimension, while follow Raynor. This was because he was sure that the female fallen angel would recognize him straight away, given his renown in the Grigori. Can I take your order? One of the waitresses asked him. Her face was glowing red from her blush. She was wearing a frilly pink and white maid outfit that was cut rather short, barely hiding her panties. He couldn't understand how this world worked. I will never understand the appeal of these places, Naruto thought to himself as he tried to find something that he would like to eat. Nearly everything on the menu was overly sugary or were more couple-oriented. Do you mind if I look over the menu a bit more? Naruto asked the waitress, who nodded before leaving to tend to another table. The blonde looked over to see Raynor feeding a spoon of chocolate into her boyfriend's mouth. It must be killing her to do that, Naruto thought with a mental chuckle. What are you doing here? Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts when he heard the familiar voice of Kaneko. The blonde looked back to see Kaneko standing behind him with an emotionless expression. Unlike before, she wasn't wearing a school outfit, but rather a plain white casual dress. It was hard to think that she really was Kuroka's sister given the differences. You know, just wanted some pastries. The blonde lied to the Nekomata as he looked through the menu. Kaneko narrowed her eyes on the blonde as she took a seat next to him, much to his interest. She obviously wasn't really the most social of people, so he assumed Kaneko would have walked away after getting his answer. You are looking after the fallen angel, aren't you? I thought Rias told you not to act, she stated as she ordered a slice of cake from the menu. Naruto smirked a bit at how observant the girl was and ordered the same thing as Kaneko. The two looked over to see the female fallen angel and the sacred gear holder laughing. And I plan to honor what I said. However, I have to make sure that my subordinate doesn't do anything dumb while your leader isn't watching, Naruto said with very little concern. He knew that if he wanted to, he could do as he pleased in the area until Sirzechs took notice. But that wouldn't be good for the somewhat peace that they three Christian factions had with one another. The doorbell rang as Issei and Raynor left the store just as their orders arrived. Do you intend to go through with what you said about training us? The white-haired teen asked Naruto, who laughed a bit, earning a small frown from the Nekomata. I never go back on my word, Nico-chan, Naruto said as he stood up and placed enough money on the table for the two orders. Kaneko raised an eyebrow at the nickname the older teen had given her. Well, time for me to continue my work. Feel free to enjoy my slice as well. My treat, the blonde said before walking towards the door with the intent of follow the couple. Oh, and don't forget your peerage is supposed to have their spar with me tonight, Naruto said as he exited the building. 2 hours later, Naruto yawned as he watched Issei walk into his house safe and sound. It had been a rather annoying job so far keeping track of the boy. He had spent most of his time today trailing him and Raynor, and so far she had done absolutely nothing. His head snapped up as he felt a powerful being flying overhead. An angel? Naruto questioned as he got a better read on the angel's power. She was clearly very powerful and matched or even surpassed Azazel's level. On top of that, he could sense just how pure of a being she was just from the moment when she flew over him. He wasn't even able to get a glimpse of her before she left his field of vision. Things just keep getting more complicated. Naruto sighed as his head dropped. That was the Seraph Gabriel, Naruto heard behind him. Ah, Sirzechs, here to watch how your sister does against me. Naruto looked back as he saw the devil faction leader appear behind him from his family seal. The two powerful beings shook hands before looking out at the house where Issei lived. It seems like your sister has taken an interest in that boy, no doubt for his sacred gear, Naruto said to the devil, who nodded with a smile on his face. The Rias tan is growing up so fast, he gushed a bit, earning a creeped out look from Naruto. What are you planning to do, Naruto? Rias Tan already asked you to stay out of the situation, the devil asked the fallen angel, who nodded a bit. He knew very well that his sister could never command the blonde to follow her orders due to the vast difference in power. The only hope that Naruto helped his dear sister fix her problem. Yeah, she did, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. Anyways, I doubt you showed up here for just a small fight like this, so what's up, Sirzechs? Naruto asked casually, as tough of a fight as the devil could give him considering what he heard for the Grigori leaders he had faced worse. The Phoenix has requested a meeting between you, me, my father and their patriarch to talk about your challenge toward Riser, Sirzechs said to the blonde, who was listening to every word the devil was saying. Azazel had taken the idea of him helping the Grimoire heiress like a fish to water. It was a win for everyone involved that wasn't a Phoenix. While the governor had listed many political benefits they could gain, he was sure it mainly had something to do with the girl's figure. Naruto's shoulder slumped slumped at the mention of a meeting with so many devil nobles. The fallen angel just nodded before pulling out a cell phone from his pocket. "Give me a second," Naruto said before making a call. After a few seconds some picked up on the other side. "Calwarner, I need you to watch over the city for a few days. I have some business to deal with in the underworld," Naruto said in a slightly depressed tone. The female fallen angel simply agreed to her order without any complication. "This is going to be a long day," Sirzechs said, sounding equally as depressed as Naruto about having to go to a political meeting. But he feared Graphia's wrath far more. In the end it was all for the benefit of his dear sister. He still wasn't sure of the blonde's motives in this whole thing. But he seemed genuine enough that his sister had revealed to him her problem. "Tell me about it," Naruto said as both supernatural beings flew up into the air. It seemed like the angel had left the area or had gotten distracted by something. "So Sirzechs, where is this meeting?" "I'm assuming the underworld," Naruto asked the super devil, who laughed a bit, earning a questioning look from the former shinobi. "No, we rented out a sushi bar in Tokyo for the meeting. My father thought it would be for the best, given how some devils still see fallen angels," Sirzechs stated. Naruto nodded as he understood the hidden meaning. He was an unknown, a powerful being that appeared out of nowhere and joined a faction that at one point was their enemy. This was probably the reason why heaven had sent one of its strongest to investigate him. "So what should we do about Gabriel?" "I have a feeling what she's looking for here," Naruto said. "I'm sure she can wait," Sirzechs responded with a lazy wave. But Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, had found himself in an old abandoned castle. Its stone walls looked withered from time and had plant life growing in the gaps. The area looked as it hadn't been inhabited in centuries, and it hadn't. Azazel walked towards the entrance of the castle, and simply floating over the large moat on each side of the door were Catholic banners in tatters. The 12-winged fallen angel broke the door down, see as it had rusted shut due to the decades of disuse. The inside was no better than the outside. Time had reduced what had at one point been a great fortress to shambles. "Now where are you?" Azazel must as he walked into the halls of the castle. Whatever he was looking for was very well hidden, as he easily got frustrated with the area. As he explored the castle until he came across a dead end. Instead of getting annoyed, however, Azazel only smirked as he reared his arm back before demolishing the wall before him. Just as he thought, the broken wall revealed a long staircase leading far lower into the castle. "To think they went to such lengths to hide this place," the perverted angel said, walking down the steps. The staircase had led him into a single massive room full of gold and other precious items. Had he been human, he would be going crazy from the sheer amount of wealth he had discovered. But that wasn't what he was after. His eyes landed on a giant golden sarcophagus that laid in the back. "There you are," the fallen angel said, grinning as he walked past the piles of good and to the tomb. "Sorry Charles, but you have something I want," he said before pushing off the lid of the coffin. Inside laid the still undecayed body, the former Holy Roman Emperor, Charlemagne. The elderly dead body was dressed in elegant robes that went well with his title. But what Azazel really wanted was what was in his hands, a sword. "I wonder if Naruto is going to like his new toy," Azazel said as he grabbed sword and ripped it out of the corpus grip. Instantly the body seemed to crumble away as it lost possession the blade. "Joyous," Azazel said with a small laugh at his accomplishment. The sword looked European in nature and had a long 5-foot silver blade without any imperfections that reflected the smallest amount of light, making it seem like it was glow. The guard was cross-shaped and made of pure gold, with a matching grip and pommel. "They really went all out making this, didn't they?" Azazel said before picking up the sheath that laid next to the now decayed body. The fallen angel's eyes widened, however, when he heard the sound of stone cracking. "Oh fuck my life," he said as the entire castle started to collapse on top of him. But Kuroka huffed as she threw herself onto her bed. She couldn't feel Naruto energy anywhere and had been left completely alone for the entire day. She couldn't even play with the little devils in the area since she was still considered a criminal by them and would be arrested or worse if news of her location made it back to the underworld. Her object of affection had been busy all day, then just up and left with the Lucifer Satan to who knows where. Kuroka, the Nekomata eyes snapped open when she heard none other than the voice of Ophis beside her. The yokai looked over to see the lowly sitting in a chair quietly looking at her. "I was looking for Naruto," the dragon god said to Kuroka, who sighed. "Sorry Ophis-sama, but Naruto is away at the moment," Kuroka sighed. "I see, I have a mission for you Kuroka. I want you to get close to Naruto and convince him to join us," Ophis said. Kuroka looked like she was insane for a second. "He will be a great help toward restoring my silence," the shape-shifting dragon told the catwoman. "I'm already trying to get close to him so he can help me rebuild my race. But I don't think he will join the Cows Brigade so easily. He's already creating ties with the devils and is one of the main members of the Grigori," Kuroka said, but earned only the same blank look Ophis constantly had on. "I will try to convince him as well," Ophis said. It almost frightened her to think what would happen if Great Red and Naruto teamed up against her. While she had many powerful beings in her group, Naruto far surpassed nearly all of them. Add that to Great Red, and even the strongest existence could be overwhelmed. She could risk making him an enemy. Alright, I'll try to convince him to join us, but I will do it on my terms, she said. She didn't want to use the option of her affection for Ophis' own goals. Of course, having him on the same side of her would make their relationship much easier, but first she wanted to establish one, a real one to be precise. Ophis just nodded and left the house as if it were her own. With Naruto and Sirzechs, the two super beings walked down the streets of Tokyo towards their destination. Both had accepted that the other was indeed capable of killing the other, despite Naruto's lead without use of Rakuto mode in Naruto's case. The power duo was gather a rather large amount of attention from the young female populations of the city. This is awkward, Naruto said, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Sirzechs laughed at the younger of the two, being alive for years he had gotten over the stares he would get from the woman he encountered. I gets better over time, Sirzechs said to the blonde who nodded. I wonder how God would react if he found out about how humans react around the very beings he hated, Naruto stated to the super devil who nearly didn't hold back his laughter. Naruto had been one of the few people Azazel had informed of the death of God, due to him not originally being from this dimension. It barely had an impact on him, given that he had no connection to the deity. Anyways, you seem rather supportive of me breaking this deal your parents made with the Phoenix. Should you be thinking what's best for the devils as a species, not just your sister? Naruto questioned Sirzechs. The devil had created an illusion around them to avoid being heard. The Redeed smiled a bit, but it seemed a bit different from before. I know I'm supposed to be a leader to the devils, and by supporting my sister like this, I'm preventing something that would go a long way in helping out my race, Sirzechs said to the blonde who listened to every word the man was saying. After all, he himself wasn't just helping for the hell of it. He couldn't just stand around after feeling the negative emotions coming of Rias during their meeting. I guess I must have a hero complex, a black-winged hero, Naruto mused to himself before he saw Sirzechs stop in front of a large building with a giant neon sign that honestly made Naruto blush. The sign had the words Devil's Delight with the image to two extremely busty naked devils on either end winking with only a bit of steam covering the nipples and lower area. What the hell? Naruto asked before he was dragged by the super devil. The inside wasn't much better than the outside. The entire place seemed to be a cross between a strip club and a restaurant. The majority of the occupants of the building were men ranging from his age to middle-aged, being served by devils barely wearing anything. He could feel quite a few fallen angels among the crowd. Sirzechs-sama. Several of the devils flocked to them before they caught sight of Naruto behind the devil and froze. He assumed that he had made quite the reputation among the devil population. If devils reacted this way, he could only image the angel's reaction. I come in peace, Naruto said awkwardly as he raised his hands in front of him. Sirzechs nodded to his claim as the devil woman nodded and went back to work, leaving them. We are having a diplomatic meeting at a strip club, Naruto asked. At this point he had decided to stop questioning the actions of devils and just roll with it. Jiraiya would have a field day in this world, the blonde thought as Graphia came out of a door leading to a back room with a noticeable frown on her face. Sirzechs-sama, Graphia said politely to her king before she looked at Naruto with a small scowl. Naruto-san, the woman said coldly, please follow me, Graphia said as she led the two back through the door she came out of into a large room. In the room sat two blondes and one Redeed. One was clearly older than the other one, who he assumed to be Rias or Phoenix. He almost let out a laugh due to how far Naruto outpowered the poor devil. But the younger one looked rather calm about having to face him. Hell, he looked like he thought he stood a chance. The Redeed looked like a middle-aged looking man with long crimson red hair that is tied as a loose ponytail with a black hairband. He had bright blue eyes just like his two children, Sirzechs and Rias Grigori. He also had a short red beard. The two blondes he assumed to be the Phoenix looked similar to one another. Riser was a tall and handsome young man in his early 20s with short blonde hair and dark blue outfit consisted of a burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right with matching pants and black dress shoes. Underneath his open blazer is a white dress shirt with the first button undone, giving a slight view to his chest. You must be Naruto, Sirzechs' father said as he stood up from his seat and walked over to the blonde offering his hand. Naruto smiled and shook the man's hand. Naruto had to admit that it was rather shocking to see just how young the man looked despite being several hundred years old. The two nodded to one another before the three standing men sat down at the table. Well, Graphia to prepare something for them. Now that everyone is here, let's get to the meeting, Lord Grigori said. Why are we even making deals with Fallen Angel anyways? Riser started glaring at Naruto, who looked unaffected. The attention was turned toward Riser, who was prepared to continue. This is a matter of the devil race. It has nothing to do with people like him, the blonde man said to the table while pointing at Naruto. He has a point, Sirzechs, the eldest Redeed said to the Satan, who visually frowned that his father had given Riser a point towards his argument. Despite the challenge, Rias is a devil, and the marriage was created for the benefit of our race. Why should a fallen angel have a say in devil affairs? Lord Grigori questioned his son. As much as he wanted the marriage contract to be broken, he couldn't help but agree that Naruto had nothing to justify them agreeing to the challenge. Sirzechs paled a bit as he tried to think of something, but luckily something came to mind. Well, it's true that a fallen angel normally has no say in the business of devils. Naruto here isn't a normal fallen angel. He is a highly influential member of the Grigori and is just as powerful if not more so than myself. Sirzechs admitted, shocking the three men just as Grafia walked in with several plates full of sushi. Are you saying that the rumors about this man are true? Lord Phoenix asked, shocked. He had heard a few rumors around the other lords following a meeting between Sirzechs and the Yokai leader, but he had written them off as a made-up story. Sirzechs nodded his response as everyone looked towards Naruto. Still, by letting him challenge Riser for my right to marry Rias, we risk losing a chance to advance the devil race back to its prime, Lord Grigori said. The possible combination of Rias' power of destruction and the Phoenix's immortality and fire control could give birth to a new generation of super devils, Rias' father said, frowning. He truly hated himself for saying that. It went against everything that he had wanted for his. He had known how Riser would have ended up, he would never have agreed to the marriage. That may be true, Sirzechs said to his father before looking at Naruto with a wide smirk, but I suggest a marriage between Naruto and Rias. Sirzechs said as he pointed at Naruto. What? Everyone else in the room yelled, including Naruto, who wasn't expecting Sirzechs to say something like that. Jaws dropped at the suggestion of the union between Naruto and Rias. Not even Grafia could believe what her king had just said. Sirzechs, that would only create a new problem. Naruto yelled at the Saint, earning nods from the others at the table. The entire point of me being here is to break the marriage contract. If you just move it towards me, it will only lead Rias to resent me, Naruto said to the super devil. But you have a positive relationship with Rias, unlike Riser, who Rias despises. My apologies, Lord Phoenix, Sirzechs said to the table. Lord Phoenix waved off the insult to his son, but took what the Redeed said into considerations. In other words, but linking Naruto and Rias through marriage, we can create a bond between the fallen angels and the devils. Since Naruto is one of Azazel's closest friends, and Rias is the sister of a Satan, it will be able to help smooth out land dispute and other problems between our factions, Sirzechs finished. Lord Grigori and Phoenix looked at one another before they started to think. Sirzechs did bring up a good point this time. They have had trouble with fallen angels since the faction was first created. Having a path towards smoothing out their issues would save lives on both sides of the factions. The issue of creating more powerful devils would also be resolved by, since the blonde beside Sirzechs was apparently as powerful as their strongest Satan. Lord Grigori smiled how his son was able to bring out a solution to their problem, making Naruto's intervention a political move by marrying him to Rias to create a direct connection between factions, made Naruto's challenge valid. Naruto frowned since this wasn't what he was thinking, but he would try to smooth things out with Rias afterwards. Lord Phoenix just nodded while Riser looked furious. Now about the terms of the challenge, Lord Phoenix said as he leaned forwards with his fingers interlocked. Riser glared at his father for agreeing to let Naruto challenge him for his right to marry Rias. Obviously Naruto here has an advantage in terms of power, given how many wings he has. I suggest that it'll be 1 versus 16 with Naruto fighting alone. Whole Riser brings his entire peerage to make up for the power difference. Lord Phoenix suggested, getting nods from the others in the room. I want to add a few things, Naruto said, getting everyone's attention. Firstly, I want to give the two of us a month to get ready for the battle. This will give Riser time to prepare for the battle. Secondly, I will retrain myself from using light magic and will stick to my secondary source of power, Naruto said, shocking the three eldest of the group of 5. Are you sure, Naruto? Sirzechs asked the blonde. The Satan knew about the Phoenix clan's ability to regenerate, and light was one of the few things that could easily put them down. It was by far one of Naruto's biggest advantages in the battle, and to willingly give it up could be a bad move. I'm sure, light is very dangerous to devils, and while I intend to wing, I don't want to kill everyone I fight, Naruto said, closing his eyes as he leaned back. After all, that would only make the Phoenix clan resent me, he added. Thank you, Lord Phoenix said to Naruto. It was rare for someone to give a second thought about possibly permanently killing. He knew that with a well-placed spear of light the blonde could kill his son in an instant. Do you think I need your handicaps? Riser yelled out, enraged that the younger blonde thought that he needed to hold back in order for the challenge to be fair. It was a blow to his pride that someone with his power was so easily looked down on by a mere fallen angel. Riser, his father yelled out before looking at Naruto. Then it said, in 1 month from today, we will meet in the underworld for a battle between you and my sons. Peerage for the hand of Rias Grigori, Lord Phoenix said before bowing and leaving with his still angry son. How do you think Rias will react? Lord Grigori asked his son, who laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. They were both a bit scared of how the female Grigori would react when she found out that instead of having her marriage contract broken, it was just moved to someone else. Naruto had a similar reaction to Sirzechs, but was a bit paler since he knew he was going to be the one to break the news to Rias. Anyways, let's just enjoy the sushi for now. They left without even eating a piece, Sirzechs said, getting a glare from his queen, but she didn't act on it. She had been strangely silent the entire time during the meeting, with the air around her growing colder and gloomier. The other two nodded and began to eat the food. Naruto looked over at Grafia to notice that she wasn't joining them, but rather watching with an emotionless mask over her face. "Hey Grafia," Naruto called out, getting her to turn her cold stare towards him. "Why are you just standing there?" "Just join us," Naruto asked, earning a raised eyebrow from Lord Grigori, who chuckled a bit before going back to the food. "The food here was prepared for your Sirzechs and his guests. As the maid of the Grigori household I will not eat," Grafia said, earning a questioning look from Naruto, who smirked as he looked over at Sirzechs, who stopped in the middle of eating a piece. "Just let it go, Naruto, she won't budge," Lord Grigori said after he swallowed. Naruto sighed before looking over at Sirzechs. "Hey Sirzechs, is there anything to drink?" He never got to finish his question, as Grafia placed a bottle of sake beside in front of him. Naruto looked up at the woman who was glaring at him. Naruto laughed nervously as he picked up the bottle and noticed that it had a chill to the touch. The blonde poured himself a small cup and offered it to the elder Redeed, who accepted it, then on to Sirzechs before pouring himself a cup. "While we're here, there was a favor I wanted to ask from you Sirzechs," Naruto said as he downed the drink. The Lucifer looked over at Naruto with a small smile. "Ask away," the Red Satan said. He was in a good mood now. His sister was finally almost free of her contract with Riser, and now with someone who would cancel it if she didn't want to marry her, and if he did go through with it would help bridge the two factions. "I want you to remove the criminal status of the SS rank stray devil Kuroka," Naruto said, causing the three devils in the room to narrow their eyes on the blonde. The tension in the room went from 0 to 100 in an instant, and it really wasn't hard to imagine why. "Naruto, you're talking about pardoning someone who broke one of the most important rules of the devil world, someone who defied her master and took his life in cold blood under the influence of Senjutsu. Well, I know that you yourself are a master of the art from what Rias told me. It doesn't excuse her for what she did," Sirzechs said to the blonde, who nodded. He agreed that if she had truly lost control and killed her master, then it was an unjustified murder. But unlike the devils, Kuroka had told him the truth of what had happened. The wide smirk made its way onto Naruto's face. "Look underneath the underneath," he said, confusing the but Grafia and Sirzechs' father quickly figured out what Naruto was trying to say. They were missing something. "Kuroka was never drunk with power," Naruto said, looking Sirzechs in the eyes. "She killed her master because he was going to go after her sister, despite what he promised her. She rebelled against him to protect the very girl who is now part of your sister's peerage," the blonde said, getting slightly surprised looks from the devils. "I can't make any promises, Naruto, but I'll see about starting an investigation," the younger of the two Redeed said, getting a smile from the blonde, who nodded. "So tell me, Naruto, how many women have you bedded?" Rias' father asked, causing the blonde to choke on the piece of sushi he was eating. Naruto looked at him like he was insane before holding up the number 0 with his fingers. "Virgin, eh? Don't worry, I'm sure y'all lose it one day at least. After all, I do want to have grandkids, that is," he said, obviously getting a bit drunk as he drank a few more cups. "Devils," Naruto said, chuckling. "So who is going to take Rias' wrath?" Lord Grigori asked the two younger men as they flew back from Tokyo. Their meeting had been a success in the eyes of Sirzechs, but Naruto still looked a bit troubled by the end result. He never expected that he would end up on the other side of the contract. It was currently nighttime in Japan, and they had just left the city after Lord Grigori had offered him a tour. "Sirzechs," Naruto responded, cold, earning a betrayed look from the super devil. "Hey, it was your idea," Naruto added when he saw the look on Sirzechs' face. He was not going to take the heat for the situation he was in now, because Sirzechs had gone behind his back to set up a way for him to take the place of Riser. "This is only for show for now anyways, a way to get the other devil clans to get behind breaking a contract of this level. If you had been anyone else, this would be blasphemy, unless Rias had broken it herself through combat, something I doubt she could do unless her peerage gained a massive boost in power, which in the amount of time she had would be impossible," the leader of the Grigori clan said. Naruto nodded, knowing that for now this deal was to keep Rias free of marriage contracts until they could fully work around it. "Of course, if the two of you end up together, I won't have any complaints," he added, much to the blonde's dismay. "Anyways, I should probably report this to Azazel and some of the other big brass in the Grigori, but first we should tell Rias about this," Naruto said to the two Redeeds. "I agreed to have a small battle with peerage to see how she is strength-wise, no doubt to see if she had a chance against Riser," Naruto stated. "You would win easily," Sirzechs said, deadpanning. As obsessed as he was with his sister and her well-being, he couldn't deny the fact that Naruto could beat his sister without breaking a sweat. It almost made him laugh, remembering how Rias had asked the blonde to join her group when they first met. "Anyways, the two of us will need to talk about this with the other Satan in the event that you two win." Indeed, despite the truce between the two factions, many within both groups still hold a large amount of hatred for each other. Many houses will oppose this and may try something Lord Grigori said to the two who listened to the older man speak. On top of that, Rias will likely oppose this, since she will still be locked into a contract should you win against Riser. Rias may try to challenge your right to marriage. Things will work out in the end, Sirzechs said. The Redeed sound confident in his plan, and as idiotic as the man was at times, he had proved to at least have the best intentions at heart. The two Grimories looked over at Naruto when his phone started to ring in his pocket. Pulling the phone out, he saw it was from Raynor. "Hey Kala, what's up?" The blonde asked the female fallen angel over the phone. "We have a problem," Naruto heard Raynor say. The two devils looked over a bit concerned when Naruto's face tensed up. "Raynor made her move while you were gone. Issei was killed and reincarnated by Rias Grimory into her pawn. He must be worth quite a lot, considering she used up all her pawn pieces on him. Sorry I couldn't do much to stop her. Some of the others in the group are growing weary of me and kept me back at the base," the fallen angel said to her superior, who noticeably frowned at the news he had been given. "I see," Naruto said slowly. He was a bit annoyed that he had failed his mission to keep the pervert safe, but was a bit happy to hear that Rias had managed to revive the guy. No doubt that she would try and use him if he failed to cancel the contract with Riser. "Anything else?" Naruto asked. "The banished nun has been called in by Raynor. Due to her situation, she has no home and no one helping her since she was labeled as a witch. At the moment, her only source of security is Raynor and her group. However, Raynor only wants to steal her sacred gear so that she may use it herself. On top of that, Freed is here as well." Raynor responded, earning a nod from the blonde man. The two exchanged a goodbye before Naruto hung up. Naruto turned to the father and son, sighing. "It seems like I'm needed back at Kuo as soon as possible. Raynor has made her move, and I fear that things will only get worse if I don't oversee the events," Naruto said, earning knowing looks from the two devils. "I understand, though I'm sure my Rias Tan can handle a few fallen angels with her peerage," Sirzechs said to the blonde, who, while a bit bothered by how casually the devil waved off the threat of his faction, knew that Rias would have easily beaten Raynor with her entire peerage attacked. What worried him, however, was that she may try and use this as a test for Issei. "We're here," Naruto said as he and the neared the city. The three supernatural beings flew down to where Naruto had sensed Rias' presence inside an ordinary-looking house. The three walked towards the door to the house he knew belonged to Issei. "They're here, Issei's house," Naruto said as he knocked on the door. After a few moments, an average-looking human woman with brown eyes and brown hair answered the door. "Hello, how may I help you three?" she asked, blushing a bit at the sight of the three. "We need to speak with your son," Lord Grigori said, using his power as a devil and influence her mind so that she didn't try and deny them entree. As the three walked into the house, the three greeted the man they assumed to be Issei's father. "Let's see what my daughter is up to," Sirzech's father said as they three arrived at the bedroom door, only to hear a crash and scream. "Oppai. I guess the pervert just woke up and saw Rias naked. How about we play a little prank on him?" the oldest of the three said with a bit of amusement in his voice, earning a questioning look from Naruto. The devil looked down at the blonde before realizing how strange his statement must have sounded. "Rias prefers to sleep nude, so it's very possible that she choose to use that to her advantage in getting the boy on her side." "Okay," Naruto said, deadpanning before he opened the door, surprising the two teens inside the room. Issei raced to cover his privates when he saw the three walk into the room. A bit of blood dribbled out of Naruto's nose as his mind took in Ria's naked form in all its glory. He took in her every detail from her long red hair to her nearly supernatural curves. "Beautiful," muttered, earning a nudge on his side from the oldest of the three men, who gave him a sly smile. Naruto turned away, blushing. "Well, Rias, I see you've been busy," her father said. Once her mind finally managed to register what was going on, she quickly hid behind the covers of Issei's bed, feeling a bit embarrassed being caught by not just her father, but her brother and one of the leaders of the fallen angels. Her embarrassment only grew when her father walked over to Issei had hastily put on his underwear. "Well now," Lord Grigori said as he neared the trembling pervert, "do you know who I am?" he asked, grinning like a devil. "No," Issei said meekly as he cowered a bit under the head's killing intent. "I'm her father," he said menacingly. Naruto nearly died laughing when Issei's skin turned pure white as his color drained from him. The Redeed let the feeling linger for a few minutes before he laughed and walked away from the pervert. "Kusama, Nai-sama, Naruto-kun, what are you three doing here?" she yelled at the three, who looked at one another. "Well, we got good news and bad news for you, Rias. We'll explain more at the Occult Research Club. For now, get dressed," Naruto said to Rias, who nodded. The blonde then turned to Issei, who was trying to get away from the three. The brown-haired teen frozen when he locked eyes with the smirking blonde. "You're coming with us, boy," Naruto said, earning rapid nods from Issei. After the two had gotten dressed, they bid farewell to the two adult humans before Issei could eat breakfast. The five walked toward the school, with Issei holding his stomach, complaining about skipping breakfast. "So did you do anything with my Rias Tan?" Sirzechs finally asked, earning a blush from the teen. "No. I swear I didn't." Issei cowered under the small amount of power Sirzechs was releasing. "Nai-sama." Rias yelled at her brother, who laughed a bit as he scratched the back of his head. "So what's going on?" I doubt the three of you randomly found each other on the streets and decided to come find me, the Crimson Princess asked the three. We will explain more when we get to the school, Naruto said. His attention however was caught. He saw none other than the Gabriel flying around with a noticeable pout on her face. No doubt she was getting annoyed of looking all over the city for him. I should probably do something about her after we finish this, Naruto thought to himself. Clubhouse. So let's start by explaining just what we are to say, Sirzechs said turning to the teen who was gawking at Akeno. This had been the first time Naruto had ever seen the daughter of his fellow fallen angel leader. It was hard to deny that she had indeed inherited a fallen angel's body. The half-devil caught him staring at her discreetly and winked. Rias Tan, if you would do the honor. After all, he is your pawn, Sirzechs said to his sister. Rias nodded and turned to the pervert. Do you remember what happened during your date? The Redeed asked, nearing a nod from the teen who brought his hand over his chest where he had been pierced. Then you remember nearly dying. However, I reincarnated you into a devil using my pawn pieces, Rias said. The devil Issei stuttered as he took a step back away from the group. Very funny, Grigori-san. I have to say that you got me, Issei said, trying to convince himself that it was all a joke. This is no joke, Issei, Kiba said, stepping up next to his king. We are all devils. Well, almost all of us, Rias said as every devil in the room revealed their bat-like wings to the pervert. Woe's jaw hit the ground at the sight of the extra body parts. Rias sighed a bit knowing that she was joined to teach Issei about the supernatural world. The two older devils laughed a bit, having gone through this several times before in the past. Naruto felt a bit bad for the guy since he himself had gone through something like that, but due to his past adjusted quickly. Wait, what about Naruto-san? Issei pointed at the spiky-haired blonde who was the only one not to show his wings, with the exception of Akeno who also hadn't let her wings out. Well, unlike the others here, I'm not a devil or human, Naruto said to the boob-obsessed teen who looked at him in confusion. Out of his back came out his 12 jet black wings. Both Issei's and Akeno's eyes widened at the sight of the wings. The blonde felt a massive spike in negative emotions from the busty priestess. He had no doubt that this hatred had something to do with her father. Rias also noticed her queen's change in behavior and gave her a side glance as a warning not to do anything stupid. They are one of them. Issei yelled as he remembered how his girlfriend has nearly killed him. He could clearly remember her black wings that matched the blonde in color. Just the sight of the wings brought back the memories of that night. You know, Naruto here may be one of the strongest beings in the universe, Rias' father said with a large smirk as he tried to scare the teen. He could easily wipe you off the face of the earth if he ever decided to, he said to the teen. Yes, he was still a bit angry that he had found him naked with his daughter, but knew that the two wouldn't do anything, or at least he hoped she wasn't that stupid. No need to scare the kid, father, Sirzechs said to the oldest of the two Redeeds. I am Sirzechs Lucifer, the current leader of the devil faction. The super devil introduced himself, but only served to scare the teen even more. Being in the same room as two beings that could wipe the floor with you with barely a thought must have been terrifying. So what's a fallen angel doing here? Akeno asked Naruto, barely holding back the edge in her voice, while trying to keep up her one-each-an appearance in front of everyone in the room. Regardless of her efforts, she wasn't fooling Naruto, thanks to his ability to feel negative emotions coming from people. I'm here to tell Rias that Sirzechs managed to work a way around her marriage with Riser, Naruto said, putting stress onto the super devil's name. Rias' eyes widened as the words left Naruto's mouth. The blonde felt a bit bad for what he was going to have to say next to her. However, there, thanks your dear brother, there's a catch, the seraph-level blonde said, getting the attention of everyone in the room. Issei looked more lost than ever before by this point. Meet your future husband, Rias, her father said as he placed a hand on Naruto's shoulders. The entire room fell silent at the announcement. Naruto looked more than a bit annoyed by Lord Grigori's interruption, but never had a chance to complain as he was hit with a wave of anger. You lied to me. Rias roared at him in anger. You said you were going to cancel the contract to just take it for yourself. She cried out. Naruto looked away, feeling ashamed that this was what it had come to. It wasn't my idea, Naruto said, but that rarely deterred the furious Redeed from grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. Everyone in the room held their breath. A high-class devil, and the sister of a Satan no less, committing a violent gesture against a faction leader, was a declaration of war in the past. Even Akeno, who wanted Naruto gone, already didn't want her president to start a war. Rias Tan don't do anything stupid, Sirzechs thought to himself. He knew that as a faction in general, the devils were far stronger than the fallen angels. However, he didn't was to risk the amount of damage a battle against a blonde would do to the city, if not the country, and it was a battle he wasn't sure he could win either. You act like I want this, Naruto said, slapping her hand away. I was planning on convincing him to let the contract drop and done with. However, we needed a reason to do this. Sirzechs was the one who proposed that it would be better for the faction if you married me, the blonde said to the Redeed, who glared at him. You're just like them. You think just because you have the power to control others you have the right to do it, Rias accused. Naruto's eyes narrowed on her. It pissed him off a bit that she was so self-righteous that she couldn't see that he didn't have many choices. On top of that, she accused accused him of doing the very thing he fought and risked his life for in his homeworld to stop. I will not force you into anything, Rias, Naruto said to her calmly. Rias back off a bit, letting him continue. Like I said, I have no intention of forcing you to marry me like Riser did. This is just a way to buy you more time before anything forces you to act, Naruto declared calmly. Rias still looked a bit annoyed but nodded. I guess I overreacted a bit, she sighed. This was not the outcome she was expecting at all. But truth be told, it did seem a bit unrealistic that Naruto could just barge into Riser's house, declare the marriage off and be done with it. At least Naruto isn't a complete perverted asshole, Rias thought as she looked over the blonde. So I guess you're my new fiancé now? Rias asked the blonde. That is going to be decided through a trial by combat, the leader of the Grigori house said, getting everyone's attention. In 1 month Naruto will battle Riser and his entire peerage. The winner will have the honor of taking Rias' hand in marriage. So for now, take some time to know each other. Hell, you two may even fall in love, the oldest devil in the room said to Rias, who nodded. I may as well give it a try, Rias thought to herself, smiling a bit. Anything is better than Riser. Looking back, Naruto had never looked at her as a trophy like the Phoenix did, nor was he trying to force himself on her. Even from their first meeting, she couldn't find a single bad thing to say about him, other than his status as fallen angel. I guess it won't hurt to see if this goes anywhere. Naruto and Sirzechs let out sighs of relief, while Lord Grigori just smiled at how mature his daughter had become. She had a long ways to go before she could be the leader of their clan, but she had just taken an important step. Glancing at Naruto, he couldn't help but smile a bit wider. Take care of my daughter, kid, he thought before looking at his watch. Excuse me, but I have a meeting soon. I'll see you all next month, Rias' father said before teleporting out of the room. Wait a second, so Rias-sama is marrying you? Issei cried out as he pointed at Naruto. 2 waterfalls made of tears were streaming down his face, making him look rather comical. Naruto just looked at him blankly before nodding. The group watched as the newly made devil crawled into a corner, crying about stupid blonde pretty boys. Both Naruto and Kiba sweat dropped at the comments the teen was making. Pervert, Kaneko said, looking at Issei and earning herself a nod from Naruto. Well, I better get going too. Grafia has a bunch of work for me to do. Sirzechs said a bit down that he had to go back to doing work. Naruto waved goodbye to the Redeed before he was left alone in the room with Rias' faction. So Naruto, do you want to have that spar with my peerage you promised after school? Rias asked the blonde, who looked at the others in the room to see how they reacted. From the looks they had on, the only one who was nervous about having to battle him was Issei, and that was due to him just becoming a devil and the joke they played on him. I was planning on having it tonight, but I think it would be for the best if you took some times to get Issei adjusted to his new life, Naruto responded before looking over at Akeno, who was rigid in her place. Is there something you want to say? I can feel that you don't like me, and we haven't even had a conversation yet, Naruto asked the teen. You're a fallen angel. Your people only care for yourselves and abandon people who aren't useful to your cause, Akeno said, remembering how her mother had been killed by her family, and her father had never once tried to help her. He didn't even try to save her mother from being killed, he just abandoned them. I hate your kind, she said to the blonde. That is understandable. I too feel like many in my faction are terrible people. Some fell because of simple lust, others fell for far worse things, Naruto said, not taking offense to the woman's remarks about his factions. He had acknowledged that there were many who were beyond gone, some who still lusted after war and had become twisted by their hatred. But I hope that you at least give me and a few others a chance to prove that we aren't all bad, Naruto said, smiling brightly. Akeno was taken back by how honest and sincere the blonde sounded. Just from hearing him talk she almost believed him. But it would take more than a few words for her to see people like her father as anything other than scum. Rias smiled at how Naruto had handled the situation. Kaneko herself listened on as she ate her treats. Now, I myself have stuff to do, so I guess I'll leave you all for now, Naruto said as he walked over to the window and jumped out. Seconds later, Naruto was seen flying up, blocking the sunlight from entering the room for a moment. Rias and Akeno looked out the window at the retreating form of Naruto. The bustier of the two reached out and felt a jet black feather land on her hand. You should give him a chance, Akeno-chan. I know what he is, and that his kind has hurt you in the past. But even though I only talked to him a few times, I can tell that he is as kind as he is powerful, Rias said, looking at the form that was her potential fiancé. Akeno looked at the feather in her hand before letting it float down to the ground. I'll think about it, she said before she walked back to a tea set, who was half prepared. She didn't know what to think of the blonde, but the fallen angel still left a bad taste in her mouth just by thinking about it. With Naruto, where is she? Naruto asked himself as he flew around looking for the seraph who had been set to find him. He had already kept her waiting long enough, and there was no point in hiding, since if someone of her level had been sent to investigate him, then heaven at least knew he was powerful. As he was looking, he flew into a large cloud only to crash into someone. Ow! Naruto heard a feminine voice said as his body collided with hers. With a simple wave, he dispersed a cloud to find a female angel with 12 white wings nursing a bump on her head. Like him, she had blonde hair, only hers was elegantly curled. She had bright blue eyes with small tears on the side from being hurt. Like many of the supernatural beings, she had a large bust and a thin waist and perfect hips. She was wearing elegant robes which signified her status as a high-ranking angel. "You must be Gabriel?" Naruto asked, nursing his own head. In his head, he berated himself for not being careful or using sage mode to quicken the process. He was thankful for his regeneration which healed the bruise rather quickly. In front of him, the seraph looked up to see his 12 wings. "I found you," she yelled happily as she pointed at him. I don't recognize you." Michael was worried that one of our brothers fell. "But I have never seen you in heaven," Gabriel said as she looked over Naruto, who was trying to get a good read on her power. It wasn't incorrect to say that she was around the level of Azazel, give or take. "Well, I have never been in heaven, so I doubt you would have seen me there," Naruto said, earning a confused look from the blonde angel. Not that he could blame her, considering that he was the first and only 12-winged angel who was created outside of heaven as far as he knew. "Now care to tell me why you were looking for me?" the blonde male asked the angel. Michael felt a massive spike of energy a few months ago, and several of our angels reported hearing and see a fallen angel with 12 wings. He was worried that someone fell, or that maybe there was a power father created before even him that we didn't know about. Gabriel explained a bit. Unknown to Naruto, she was trying to get a reading on his personality. It took a lot for her not to express her shock when she felt a pureness in Naruto's soul. It was almost like he was an angel who hadn't fallen, but his wings proved otherwise. "I've never seen such a pure-hearted fallen angel," she thought to herself. To her it almost felt like Naruto was a star radiating light. It was a feeling she only got from a very select few outside of her faction. The fact that Naruto was fallen only added to the mystery around him. Even Azazel, who had a good heart, had some kind of taint about him in the form on extreme lust. Naruto, on the other hand, lacked even that taint. Naruto nodded, understanding the concern. From what he could tell, it was rather easy for an angel to fall, due to the strict restriction put on them by God, and near impossible for a fallen angel to get back to heaven. It was one of the reasons that resulted in a dwindling population of angels, since they couldn't reproduce without falling. "Well, I guess you found me," Naruto shrugged. "So what will heaven do now? Will you try to kill me?" Naruto asked the angel. "What? No. I was sent to see what caused a surge in power," Gabriel responded with a rather cute pout on her face. "But I still don't understand how you stayed out of heaven's sights. Did Father create you in secret? Tell me." Gabriel insisted, getting a small laugh from Naruto. "At least he couldn't say this world didn't have some rather colorful people." "Well, it'll tell you that I wasn't made by your father," Naruto told Gabriel. The female angel tilted her head on confusion, which was understandable, since without their god heaven couldn't make any new angels. "I used to be human," Naruto said, shocking the seraph. "What? How is that possible?" Gabriel questioned the Uzumaki. "Well, you know how devils can use their evil P system to turn humans into devils?" Naruto asked, getting a nod from Gabriel. "Well, Azazel managed to replicate it once and used it to save me from death by turning me into a fallen angel. But he hasn't been able to replicate the process since then," Naruto explained to the angel. Gabriel smiled, knowing that Naruto had been completely honest with her. Despite him being a fallen angel, he wasn't doing any of the normal things a member of his faction would do. If anything, she would have thought he belonged in heaven after seeing how pure his soul was. It also amazed her how far Azazel had come in his research. "Thank you for being honest, Naruto," Gabriel said. Naruto smiled back and nodded. "So what are you going to do now?" "I don't want to fight with either you or your brother," Naruto said sincerely. "Like Azazel, I just want to bring peace to the factions. I think that if we all just try to accept each other and see that by trying to hurt each other we will hurt ourselves. If we could just forgive each other for the wrongs of the past, then maybe we could end all this senseless violence," the blonde said to the angel. "Thank you, Naruto. I'm happy to hear that you have such a noble goal, Naruto," Gabriel said cheerfully. To Naruto, it was refreshing being around someone as light-hearted as the seraph. She didn't give off any negative emotions, unlike many of devils and fallen angels he had met and worked with. "Oh, I better report to Michael," she said suddenly. "Well, I guess this is goodbye. I hope to see you again," Naruto said to her before he flew away. Gabriel nodded and flew away in the other direction, but not before looking back one last time and reaching out to Naruto's heart. She smiled at the warm feeling she felt before returning to heaven to give her report. Naruto's home. The blonde collapsed on his bed and let out an exhausted sigh after the day he had. Looking over, he stared at his mechanical arm. At first glance, it looked like a normal arm, but if someone were to touch it, they would feel the cold metal it was made out of. It was a reminder of where he came from and his battle with Kagaya. "I wonder what Sasuke and Sakura are doing," Naruto asked himself as he rolled in his bed. He thought about all the people he had met so far in this world. He wondered what they would think if they saw his world. Everything was so different here compared to in Konoha. He also wondered what had happened after the war. How had things ended up after he disappeared? "Naruto-kun," Kuroka yelled as she busted into his room, breaking his train of thought. "Where have been? I got so lonely." Kuroka said as she jumped on his bed. Naruto looked away as her cleavage was inches from his face. Well, I'm getting married to your sister's king, Naruto said. Thanks for watching.